Chapter 13-19. Apotheosis Bella had arranged everything. Except for Eastwoo, the other 5 had already left. When Apotheosis Bella's suspicious eyes landed on Venerable Eastwoo, he forced a smile and cupped his fists to Tang Xiu. "Great Tang Heavenly Emperor, please explain it to me. Eastwoo has just broken through to the mid-stage perfected golden immortal stage, so I'm going to take him to the immortal cave domain." Tang Xiu lightly smiled. "You should understand that he has just broken through and needs to temper himself in battle." "You actually broke through to the mid-stage perfected golden immortal stage, Eastwoo?" Apotheosis Bella was surprised. "If my memory serves me right, you've been stuck at the early stage perfected golden immortal stage for more than 2,400 years, no?" "You're right," said Eastwoo respectfully. "If it wasn't for Great Tang Heavenly Emperor who saved my life in Renault City and gave me some pointers, let alone breaking through to the mid-stage perfected golden immortal stage, I would have been dead by now." Apotheosis Bella was shaken inwardly and asked in a deep voice, "What exactly happened?" The confusion in Eastwoo's heart deepened. He didn't expect that Apotheosis Bella wasn't the slightest bit surprised about Great Tang Heavenly Emperor giving him pointers. After organizing his words, he recounted everything that happened before and finally said, "It's also thanks to Great Tang Heavenly Emperor's pointers that my understanding of the Heavenly Tao Law has gone further, allowing me to break through to the mid-stage perfected golden immortal stage." Apotheosis Bella let out a smile and nodded. "It's really a blessing for you to get his guidance. Since he asked you to follow us to the immortal cave domain, you can enter the heavenly abode artifact he carries with him." "You're going too?" asked Eastwoo in shock. Apotheosis Bella nodded and smilingly said, "That's right. I'm also going there." Venerable Eastwoo was even more curious about the relationship between Apotheosis Bella and Great Tang Heavenly Emperor. If he remembered correctly, Apotheosis Bella had always had eyes on the top of her head. She had always been indifferent to any man except for Star Cultivation Great Emperor. Could it be because Star Cultivation Great Emperor's soul had been destroyed, so Apotheosis Bella decided to sever all the karma and start a new life? But that's not right. If Apotheosis Bella had decided to cut off all karma with the past, she wouldn't have taken them to the Immortal Lyceum to save the people of the Rosefinch Holy Sect. The bewildered Venerable Eastwoo finally didn't ask about the confusion in his heart and directly entered the heavenly abode artifact carried by Tang Xiu. There, he, Star Tears, and Sable Fiend Scorpio quietly cultivated inside the artifact and consolidated their realms. 2 days later, Tang Xiu and Apotheosis Bella left the Immortal Lyceum, but they didn't use the Immortal Lyceum spatial teleportation array. Instead, they directly flew out of the Immortal Lyceum's immortal domain. It took them half a year to pass through 2 immortal domains. After Apotheosis Bella changed her appearance and aura, she followed Tang Xiu through the spatial teleportation array to the distant immortal cave immortal domain. 2.5 years later, Tang Xiu and Apotheosis Bella stepped out of the teleportation array in Sacred Fire City of Immortal Cave Immortal Domain. Looking at the thousands of immortal soldiers around them brimming with murderous aura and the fact that the commander of these immortal soldiers turned out to be a perfected golden immortal, the 2 of them calmly left. After a long time, Tang Xiu transmitted his voice to her, "How long have we been in the Immortal Cave Immortal Domain? To think that we've already encountered so many powerhouses. It seems that there are no less than 10 perfected golden immortals among them, no?" "The inheritance secret art left by Drunken Immortal Supreme is indeed a huge temptation," replied Apotheosis Bella via voice transmission. "I'm afraid that 1/10 of the perfected golden immortals in the entire immortal world will come here, hoping to try their luck. And the number of golden immortals will probably be countless times more." Tang Xiu nodded and said, "To be honest, there aren't many people I admire, but Drunken Immortal Supreme is definitely one of them. 80,000 years ago, the immortal world was full of powerhouses, yet he was able to sit firmly on the throne of the immortal world's #1 powerhouse. It's a pity that we weren't born in the same era, else I'd really like to see his elegant demeanor. I firmly believe that you'll be able to see Drunken Immortal Supreme with your own eyes one day," said Apotheosis Bella with a smile. "If there's anyone in the entire immortal world who has the most hope to break through to the true God stage and ascend to the God's realm, it's you." Tan Xiu couldn't help laughing and said, "You're really confident in me, huh? But I'm also confident in myself. After all, I've crossed the divinity tribulation before, so I'll be more confident next time." 2 days later. The duo didn't hurry and instead leisurely flew slowly to the boundless mountain range where Drunken Immortal Supreme's secret palace was located. The small city that used to be the closest to the boundless mountains was now packed with people. Countless palaces could be seen within 1,000,000 miles of the small city. The forces of the world of immortals were too numerous to count. Apotheosis Bella had converged her aura and changed her appearance, so she looked like an ordinary person. She followed Tan Xiu and observed a lot of forces before landing on a remote riverside. "We need to buy a palace-type immortal artifact." Tan Xiu looked around and spoke with a forced smile. Since he had come here, he didn't want to be repeatedly observed by countless people. If he could buy a palace-type immortal artifact, he could block the spiritual sense of outsiders. "I just found some people from the Refiner sect. Let's go find them. I'm sure we can buy a palace-type immortal artifact." Apotheosis Bella said with a smile. "Yeah, that's what I plan to do." Tan Xiu held Apotheosis Bella's hand and flew toward the direction of the Refiner sect's palace. In just a quarter of an hour, they arrived outside the sect's palace gate. "Halt!" Four golden immortals blocked Tan Xiu and Apotheosis Bella outside. "We're here to buy a palace-type immortal artifact," said Tan Xiu. "Your sect has a rule that immortal artifacts will be sold as long as there's a palace outside, right?" The four men nodded and said, "We naturally won't stop you since you're visiting our sect to do business. Please come in." After Tan Xiu and Apotheosis Bella stepped into the palace gate, they saw a beautiful ordinary female immortal greeting them with a warm smile. However, Tan Xiu's eyes only flashed from her and then fell on two figures at the end of the corridor. Those figures were somewhat familiar to him. Tan Xiu wanted to release his spiritual sense to probe them, but he found that the palace had a suppressive effect on his spiritual sense. Just as he released his spiritual sense, it suffered a fierce attack. With no other choice, he could only retract his spiritual sense and watch the two familiar figures disappear into the palace's corridor. "What can I do for you two distinguished guests?" asked the female immortal with a smile. "We're going to buy some palace-type immortal artifacts and take us inside," said Tan Xiu. The female immortal hesitated for a moment and then forced a smile. "Two distinguished guests, I'll be frank with you. Although our sect brought a lot of palace-type immortal artifacts this time, we're out of stock due to too many distinguished guests buying them. If you two can wait for half a year, you can wait for a new batch of palace-type immortal artifacts to be delivered." Tan Xiu shook his head and said, "We may not need palace-type immortal artifacts after half a year." "Then I can only apologize to you two distinguished guests," said the female immortal. Suddenly, Apotheosis Bella took out a golden token and shook it in front of the female immortal. Then, she lightly said, "Your sect has always liked to keep a backup plan. I think if you still have some palace-type immortal artifacts left, you should give us priority to sell one of them to us." The female immortal's expression greatly changed when she saw the token. She immediately took out a message token and respectfully said, "Two distinguished guests, please wait for a moment. The wordless token is something that only the truly distinguished guests of my sect can have. There are less than 50 people in the entire immortal world who can have this token. Hence, my qualification is too low. Some seniors of my sect will come to receive you two later." As expected. A few minutes later, a figure appeared in front of the duo. The newcomer was a white-haired old man with a stooped body and a somewhat hunchback. His bronze-colored skin was already full of wrinkles. Tan Xiu and Apotheosis Bella were very powerful, so they could naturally sense the old man's declining aura. This indicated that the old man's lifespan would not exceed 300 years at most. Wuji. A complicated look flashed in Tan Xiu's eyes. He knew the old man in front of him and even had a good friendship with him. Unfortunately, the old man had been seriously injured and his cultivation had stagnated at the late-stage perfected golden immortal stage. It was impossible for him to step into the supremacy stage for the rest of his life. Once upon a time, Tenshio also had a wordless token, which was given to him by the sect master's senior brother of this old man. Unfortunately, he was raided and his interspatial ring was robbed, so the wordless token no longer belonged to him. You two fellow immortals look unfamiliar. May I know which disciple of my sect got it? Old man Wuji asked with a sigh after confirming the wordless token. Wu Sei, answered Apotheosis Bella. Old man Witless was slightly stunned, then he said in surprise, Junior brother has not left our crafting sect for more than 500 years. Even in the past 3,000 years, he has only left our crafting sect twice. Yet, you actually got the wordless token from him. That's really strange. I got it 500 years ago, said Apotheosis Bella lightly. A glint flashed in old man Wuji's eyes. He had read the ancient records of the wordless token, so he naturally knew who junior brother Wu Sei gave the token to. After pondering for a moment, he asked with a strange look in his eyes, I presume fellow immortal knows Apotheosis Bella. Old man Wuji loves to gossip. It seems that the rumors in the immortal world are true, said Apotheosis Bella calmly. Ugh, old man Wuji's breathing stagnated and he immediately let out a hollow laugh. This old man was rude. You came to my sect with the wordless token to buy an immortal artifact, so you naturally have the priority. You can even choose any 3 immortal artifacts from us without paying a penny. If you choose more than 3, we'll take the money for the 4th immortal artifact. Apotheosis Bella nodded and said, Venerable Wu Sei told me about the rules, so I understand. We came here this time because we need a palace-type immortal artifact. Chapter 1320. Old man Witless raised his hand and took out a palace-type immortal artifact and smilingly said, The weapons refined by my sect were the most popular in the past, but I didn't expect that the demand for palace-type weapons would be in short supply here. This is an 8th grade immortal artifact called the Myriad Golden Sail. It can be used as a palace for daily living and can also be used for flying. Apotheosis Bella received it and nodded. Thank you. Please don't be so polite, fellow immortal. Old man Witless smiled. This is the rule of my sect and it's something I should do. It's a pity that junior brother Colorless didn't come this time, else he would have been pleasantly surprised. Apotheosis Bella realized that this old man had probably guessed her true identity, so she didn't want to stay here for long. She looked at Tan Shio and asked, Are we leaving now? Or, let's continue strolling around since we're already here, said Tan Shio. Maybe we'll encounter an unexpected surprise. All right. Apotheosis Bella nodded. Do you still need my company? Asked old man Witless with a smile. No need for the time being, said Tan Shio. We'll naturally send someone to find you if we need you. Also, please convey my regards to fellow immortal Nameless. Senior brother Nameless? Old man Witless' eyes lit up as he watched the backs of Tan Shio and Apotheosis Bella entering the corridor. He secretly tried to figure out their true identities. He had vaguely guessed Apotheosis Bella's identity, but what was the origin of that young man? He actually wanted him to convey his regards to senior brother Nameless. It must be noted that those who had a relationship with senior brother Nameless in the entire immortal world were all almighty immortals. Most of them were at least late-stage perfected golden immortals or supremes. In the corridor, Apotheosis Bella sent a voice transmission to Tan Shio. 500 years ago, I met Old Man Colorless in the periphery of the Rosefinch Holy Sect when I was fighting with Zither Demon Juyao's subordinates. I don't know why he changed his appearance to help the people of the Rosefinch Holy Sect, but he and I fought side by side and stayed there for decades. In the end, he was heavily injured and had no choice but to retreat. Tan Shio sighed, I have a deep relationship with the crafting sect, but I didn't expect them to help the Rosefinch Holy Sect in such a critical moment. I still need to repay this favor in the future. Suddenly, he thought of the wise old man's physical condition and immediately had an idea. The wise old man had once been heavily injured, and it was impossible for him to break through to the Supreme Being realm. However, he had an extreme method that could change the wise old man's situation. A peach in return for a plum. Since the crafting school had done the Rosefinch Holy Sect a favor, then they would have to repay it to the wise old man. The interior of this palace was very spacious. Tan Xiao and Apotheosis Bella wandered around inside for nearly a day, yet they only saw 1/3 of the immortal treasures in the area. Can you make it cheaper? Recently, we are very tight on money. Being able to take out 4 million immortal crystals is already our limit. We really don't have any more. Just as Tan Xiao and Apotheosis Bella stepped into a side hall, they heard a bitter voice coming from inside. When the two looked over, they saw 2 men in their 30s talking to the people of the crafting sect. I'm sorry, but the lowest price for this Sky Shaker axe is 2 million immortal crystals. If we sell it for 4 million immortal crystals, we won't even be able to recover our capital. If you two really can't take out so many immortal crystals, you can look at other immortal artifacts. The beautiful female immortal who received the two shook her head with a helpless look on her face. Star Luminous and Star Peng. Both of them were late-stage perfected golden immortals, disciples of the Rosefinch Holy Sect and outstanding geniuses of the Rosefinch Holy Sect. They were less than 2,000 years old, yet they were able to cultivate to the perfected golden immortal stage. They could be ranked among the peerless geniuses in the immortal world. However, at present, the Rosefinch Holy Sect was in a precarious situation. All the disciples of the sect were forced to hole up in the sect, and the consumption of various cultivation resources was huge. This time, after the two learned that the secret palace of Drunken Immortal Supreme was about to open, they begged Sect Master Supreme Star Soul, hoping to get a chance to sneak out of the sect. In the end, the two of them had experienced dozens of assassination attempts. Relying on the immortal artifacts given by Sect Master Supreme Star Soul, they managed to escape from death time and time again and finally came here incognito. Unfortunately, their innate natal artifacts had been destroyed along the way, so they could only think of ways to buy some immortal artifacts to prepare for the battle after entering the secret palace. However, what made the two of them helpless was that even though the sect gave them some immortal crystals when they came out, they only received a total of 3 million immortal crystals because the sect was extremely lacking in immortal crystals. They even used 600,000 immortal crystals on the way here. The remaining 4 million immortal crystals were the last of their wealth. A deep disappointment appeared in Star Luminous' eyes and he bitterly said, since the price of this Sky Shaker axe can't be any lower, we can only choose other immortal artifacts. Aggrieved. Bitter. They were once disciples of the Rosefinch Holy Sect, and they were even direct relatives of the sect. Coupled with their cultivation talents, they never lacked immortal crystals and crystal essences. The various resources were inexhaustible, so how could he worry about a mere few million immortal crystals? Senior brother, this Sky Shaker axe is already the lowest grade immortal artifact you can take a fancy to. If you look for other immortal artifacts with a lower price, it will greatly reduce your combat power, said Star Peng bitterly. But we can't take out so many immortal crystals to buy this Sky Shaker axe, said Star Luminous helplessly. Also, that half-moon immortal saber you took a fancy to is the most suitable immortal artifact for you. In the past, Tan Xiao walked over with Apotheosis Bella. Just as he uttered those two words, he attracted the attention of Star Luminous, Star Peng, and the female immortal of the Refiner sect. Then, he lightly said, I once encountered 2 young friends in such a difficult situation. A certain senior happened to pass by and paid for the immortal artifacts for me with the words fate. Furthermore, I narrowly escaped death several times in the following days. The past scenes are still vivid in my mind. I deeply sympathize with you 2 young friends after seeing your encounter. I'll pay for these 2 immortal artifacts for you. What? Star Luminous and Star Peng exchanged dismayed glances with disbelief on their faces. Never in their wildest dreams had they imagined that when they were so poor that they couldn't even afford a celestial artifact, they would actually encounter a generous fated person. May I know your name, Senior? We Marshall brothers will never forget today's grace. Star Luminous looked grateful and respectfully cupped his fists. Tan Xiao lightly smiled and said, I don't need to pretend to be indifferent since it's a good karma. I'm Great Tang Heavenly Emperor, so you can just call me Senior. Thank you, Senior Great Tang. The duo bowed again. Tan Xiu waved his hand and said, I told you that this is fate between us, so you don't need to be polite to me. Live well and become stronger in the future. Only then will you have the chance to repay this friendship. Let me think about it. Since the immortal artifacts here are so cheap, each of you should choose a defensive immortal artifact. You'll only be able to survive in the future if you have more capital to protect yourself. Only then will you be able to repay my kindness. The duo looked hesitant. On the contrary, the female immortal had a strange look on her beautiful face. There was even a flash of envy in her eyes. Looking at their hesitant expressions, Tan Xiu lightly said, Don't refuse others' help when you're in a difficult situation. Because only by surviving, only by becoming stronger, is what you need to do the most. Also, you only have one chance. If you choose to refuse, you'll never get a defensive immortal artifact again. Star Luminous and Star Peng glanced at each other and nodded. After thanking Tan Xiu, they each took an offensive immortal artifact and then chose a defensive one that suited them. Only then did they look at Tan Xiu with an embarrassed expression. Tan Xiu shifted to the female immortal and lightly asked, How many immortal crystals in total? After calculating, the female immortal respectfully said, A total of 34 million immortal crystals. Tan Xiu took out 340,000 crystal essences and handed them to the female immortal. Then, he lightly said, Count them. If the number is correct, then the deal is completed. Understood. Quickly after, the female immortal respectfully said, The number is correct. Tan Xiu turned to look at Star Luminous and Star Peng. After pondering for a while, he said, There's still half a year before the secret palace opens. Even if you're golden immortals, it's not good for you to live in the open. If you two are willing to run some errands for me and handle some trivial matters in the next 6 months, I'll take you in. Also, I'll pay you 1 million crystal essences as a reward if the things you do for me are dangerous. How about it, 1 million? Crystal essences? Star Luminous and Star Peng's eyes immediately lit up. With so many crystal essences, even the hundreds of thousands of people in the Rosefinch holy sect wouldn't have enough, right? Humans die for wealth, just as birds die for food. Let's do it. The duo quickly exchanged glances and respectfully said, We're willing to serve you for half a year, Senior Great Tang. Tan Xiu nodded with satisfaction and said, Since you've bought what you want, then come with me. Senior Great Tang, we still have 4 million immortal crystals left, so we want to buy some healing pills, said Star Luminous hurriedly. We've exhausted all the healing pills we have in order to get here. Tan Xiu quietly observed the duo. He could see the bitter expression on their faces and secretly sighed inwardly. From Star Luminous' words, he could guess that the two of them had probably gone through a lot of crises for them to come here alive. Else, as golden immortals, it was impossible for them to not carry some healing pills. In the next moment, Tan Xiu took out 2 jade bottles from his interspatial ring and threw them to them like throwing garbage. Then, he lightly said, What kind of healing pills can you buy with those immortal crystals? How many can you buy as a spare? Let's go. Don't waste my time. Chapter 1321. Star Luminous and Star Peng took the jade bottles. When they unplugged the cork and smelled the medicinal fragrance drifting out of the bottles, a wry smile appeared on their faces. Purple scent pills. Each purple scent pill was worth millions of immortal crystals. Even if a golden immortal was seriously injured, they could recover in just a few days after taking a purple scent pill. What made the duo speechless was that this mysterious Great Tang Heavenly Emperor actually threw 10 pills to each of them as if they were trash. 20. A purple scent pill was worth millions of immortal crystals, so the total value of 20 purple scent pills was 20 million immortal crystals. Coupled with the 34 million immortal crystals he used to buy immortal artifacts for them, he actually threw out 54 million immortal crystals in front of them in just a quarter of an hour. This was really, how rich and overbearing. The duo put the jade pendants into their interspatial rings with wry smiles and obediently followed behind Tan Xiu. Their eyes were full of curiosity as they kept wandering back and forth between Tang Xiu and Apotheosis Bella. They silently pondered inwardly. Where did this great Tang Heavenly Emperor come from? They had never heard of this name before. Boundless Mountain Range. Tan Xiu summoned the myriad golden sail on the riverside millions of miles away, causing it to expand into a ship-shaped building that covered an area of several kilometers. Then, the door opened and the four of them floated inside. The myriad golden sail had a total of 3 floors. Apart from the spacious hall on the first floor, there were 24 relatively small rooms, each of which was empty. Apart from the hall in the middle of the second floor, there were corridors with more than 100 rooms on both sides of the corridor. Apart from the corridor on the third floor, there were 4 rooms of the same size. One could easily see the scene outside through the profound crystal window. You can choose whichever room you want to live on the second floor. But you're not allowed to go to the third floor without my permission. After saying that, Tan Xiu led Apotheosis Bella to the third floor. Shortly after, he took out one item after another from the space ring. They were all household items that he had bought during the last period on Earth. In his space ring, there were even hundreds of the world's top Simmons beds. This did not include the large number of military beds that Gu Xiaoxue and the others had bought. These things are very unique. Apotheosis Bella curiously looked at the things Tan Xiu took out and quickly put them together to form a strange space. She then reached out her hand to take out a table lamp and said curiously. Tan Xiu faintly smiled. Since there was a spare battery in the table lamp, he walked over and turned it on. As the lamp lit up, he smiled and said, "This is a technological product from Earth. I brought everything here from Earth. In the past, I didn't care about the so-called technology at all. But now that I've been reborn, I've realized that cultivation has its own benefits, and technology has its own advantages. Once I'm done here, I plan to head to the technocracy and get my hands on a large number of technological armors." Apotheosis Bella frowned and said, "I've seen those technological armaments you mentioned before. However, they weren't part of the ordinary territories of the immortal world. Instead, they were located in the distant void, with civilizations and empires of various levels. Those technological armors seem to be very lousy. I can smash a huge battleship with a slap. There are also differences between technological armors." Tan Xiu lightly smiled and said, "High-grade battleships with huge power can even kill golden immortals. Even the main cannons of top-grade battleships can pose a threat to perfected golden immortals. Bella, don't look down on anything. Those things can exist, so their value can be explained." Apotheosis Bella gave it a thought and felt that Tan Xiu's words made sense. However, she was a dignified supremacy stage powerhouse, so she still looked down on those so-called technological armors. She casually smiled and said, "I'll accompany you since you want to go. Just think of it as finding something new to do and going out to relax." "All right." Tan Xiu nodded with a smile. On the second floor, Star Luminous and Star Peng didn't separate from each other. With a strange expression, they randomly picked a room and immediately arranged a soundproof array. Then, they took out 2 cushions from their interspatial rings and sat cross-legged. "Senior brother, I think there's something wrong with this great Tang Heavenly Emperor." Star Peng's eyes flickered and he spoke in a low voice. Star Luminous nodded slowly and said, "I also think there's something wrong with him, but I don't sense any killing intent from him. Given his cultivation and the strength of that woman next to him, I'm afraid it won't be difficult for him to kill us. Yet, they didn't do anything to us, which shows that they have no malice toward us." "We can't conclude whether they have any malice or not yet," said Star Peng. "There are too many people in this world who need help, so why does it have to fall on our heads?" "You mean, what is he trying to do with us?" asked Star Luminous. "That should be the case." Star Peng nodded and said, "We've changed our appearance and even disguised our aura. Only those who are very familiar with us can guess our true identity. We've never met this great Tang Heavenly Emperor, so he shouldn't know our true identity. Therefore, I'm afraid it's not as simple as forming a good relationship with us since he has done so much for us. Maybe he's plotting something and wants to use us. Star Luminous nodded silently and said, we can't rule out this possibility. However, I can't figure out what he wants to use us for. Star Peng squinted his eyes and said, he may not have any way to use us now, but that may change after we enter the secret palace of Drunken Immortal Supreme. Star Luminous' expression moved. After thinking for a long time, he slowly said, we can't get the answer even if we just make wild guesses now. Whether he wants to use us or not, we only need to remember one thing, to always be on guard against others and immediately retreat once we find something amiss. Well, that's the only way. Star Peng nodded silently and said, let's seize the time to refine our immortal artifacts before the secret palace opens. We'll have more life-saving means when we enter the secret palace. Time flew by. In the blink of an eye, 4 months had passed and there were only 2 months left before the secret palace of Drunken Immortal Supreme opened. During this period, Tan Xiao and Apotheosis Bella stayed on the 3rd floor of the myriad golden sails. Aside from cultivating every day, they also observed the surrounding movements. Dual cultivation. An immortal couple's affair. After Tan Xiao and Apotheosis Bella dual cultivated, Tan Xiao cultivated Primal Chaos Force, a high-level power several levels higher than Immortal Force. Apotheosis Bella, on the other hand, was a Supremacy Stage powerhouse. Coupled with her virgin body, the density of her Yin essence had reached an unimaginable level. Therefore, both of them obtained huge benefits and their cultivation advanced by leaps and bounds. The heavenly art of cosmic genesis is really mysterious. Although I can't comprehend or cultivate it, the benefits it has brought me in the past few months are simply unimaginable. According to my usual cultivation speed, the harvest I've gained in just a few months is equivalent to hundreds of years of solitary cultivation. Apotheosis Bella hadn't broken through to the supremacy stage for a long time. Due to the continuous battles, she constantly suffered heavy injuries and didn't have much time to stabilize her realm. But in the past few months, her realm had become very stable and the power she could unleash had increased by at least 1/10. Tan Xiao didn't talk to her about this issue and instead came to the window to look outside. Apart from immortals everywhere, there were also palaces within a range of 50,000 miles. The two of them didn't encounter any familiar people during this period. Occasionally, some familiar figures would fly past them, but they chose to remain silent. Bella, there are only 2 months left. I need to scout out the situation outside. Great Emperor Danqing doesn't like lively places and has always lived in seclusion, so he shouldn't have come to the boundless mountain range. But Zither Demon Jiuyao is a very active person and wants to go wherever there is a major event in the immortal world, so he should be here. You're a supremacy stage powerhouse, so even if perfected golden immortals can't detect your cultivation, supremacy stage powerhouses should be able to detect it. Therefore, you'll stay here to prevent those supremacy stage powerhouses from bumping into you, Tan Xiao turned around and said seriously. Apotheosis Bella thought for a while and nodded. You have Star Tears and Sable Fiend Scorpio with you, so I can rest assured. However, there are countless powerhouses coming from all over the immortal world on the eve of such a major event, and many people with grudges will have conflicts with each other. It's very chaotic, so you must pay attention to your safety and don't easily clash with others. Tan Xiao nodded and said, don't worry. I know what I'm doing. Having said that, when Tan Xiao came to the 2nd floor, he found that Star Luminous and Star Peng weren't cultivating in their rooms but were standing on the edge of the cabin and looking around. He immediately floated over and lightly said, do you want to take a stroll outside? Great Tang Heavenly Emperor. The duo hurriedly saluted Tan Xiao and then Star Luminous said, we do want to take a stroll around. After all, countless forces will be involved in the secret palace's opening. We want to inquire about the number of forces and powerhouses who are preparing to enter the secret palace. I'm afraid very few celestial immortals and profound immortals dare to enter the secret palace, said Tan Xiao. They know very well that entering the secret palace is tantamount to being robbed of the treasures inside, and the chances of getting killed are too high. There are at least 1,000,000 perfected golden immortals in the entire immortal world, and at least half of them will choose to enter the secret palace for the inheritance of drunken immortal supreme. As for golden immortals, the number is probably even larger. Hence, there's no need for you to inquire about it. Tan Xiu looked at the slightly changed expressions of the duo and secretly sighed inwardly. How could he not guess that the duo mainly wanted to inquire about the enemy's situation? However, he didn't expose it and lightly said, "But since you two want to go out and stroll around, I'm bored staying here, so accompany me. Maybe there'll be some unexpected gains." The return to the immortal world would come to an end at the end of this month, but the story wouldn't end just like that. Quiet Night will continue to bring happiness to everyone in the form of a story. The brothers and sisters will decide who to write the story and what kind of story to write. You can vote for today's story after following the WeChat account. Quiet Night's WeChat account is JYJS00, or you can directly search for Quiet Night and follow at _. Chapter 1322. Between the palaces, a large number of immortals were either hurrying or sitting in meditation. Roads were formed between the tens of thousands of palaces. Tan Xiu led Star Luminous and Star Peng to walk quietly on the road. His eyes casually glanced around, observing the palaces and immortals in the surroundings. Today, the weakest ones who dared to appear here were ordinary immortals. Mortals were afraid of encountering hot-tempered immortals here and bringing disaster to them. Countless faces made Tan Xiu feel strange to almost all of them. It wasn't surprising since he rarely went out since he became a supremacy. Even if he did go out, it was either for important matters or to visit his old friends. He rarely interacted with low-level immortals. 7 days later, Tan Xiu finally saw a familiar face. A murderous intent burst out from his eyes after seeing that person. But in the next moment, he turned to look at Star Luminous and Star Peng and lightly said, "I can feel the murderous aura coming from you too. Even if you're perfected golden immortals, you can't provoke trouble here. Think clearly about your purpose in coming here. You're not here to seek revenge, but to snatch the immortal fate." Star Luminous and Star Peng exchanged glances and immediately restrained their murderous aura. They then stared at the thin man sitting cross-legged outside a palace thousands of meters away like a watchdog. Then, they nodded to Tan Xiu and remained silent. Argent Marshal Hale. He was Tan Xiu's former disciple. Although he was young, his cultivation talent was excellent and he possessed ice and fire dual veins. Eventually, Tan Xiu took a fancy to him and accepted him as his disciple and carefully taught him for hundreds of years. Argent Marshal Hale's cultivation was only at the early stage of Golden Immortal 700 or 800 years ago. Unexpectedly, he had reached the late stage of Golden Immortal in such a short time. They then changed their route and continued moving forward. Tan Xiu looked around and quietly listened to the conversations of many immortals. Soon, he learned a lot of things. He had even heard about the location of the Inner Pill sect and the Wuji Palace. "Let's go to the Boundless City," Tan Xiu said casually and then floated up and flew toward the nearest small city in the Boundless Mountain Range. Star Luminous and Star Peng exchanged glances and immediately flew up to follow Tan Xiu. Boundless City. Built atop a towering mountain, the entire city was an immortal artifact. Additionally, it was a Grade 9 Palace-type immortal artifact. The person who controlled this 9th-grade palace artifact was a perfected golden immortal, and even his master, Elder Jin Feng, respectfully and cautiously received the guests. The inheritance secret palace left behind by drunken immortal supreme was about to open, causing a large number of powerhouses from the immortal world to arrive. Not only did vast expanse city's star guardian act as if he was treading on thin ice, respectfully and cautiously entertaining the guests, but even his master, Old Man Gold Peak, also came to oversee this place. No one wanted to cause trouble and have a feud with a supreme powerhouse before the secret of immortals and of them. And of masters of people. Around. The mortals and immortals who lived here all carefully served the experts who came from all directions. Many of them were even rewarded handsomely. Yu Tian. He was a cultivator who lived in Boundless City for 18 years. Although he was only at the Golden Core stage, he lived a very comfortable life because of his slick character. Every day, he wandered around the city, acting as a guide for some immortals. His blacksmith father wanted nothing more than to break his legs and tie him up at home to learn blacksmithing and artifact forging for a living. Yesterday I got an immortal crystal as a reward. If I can meet some rich guest today, I might get more than yesterday. It's a pity that this city is too small and those immortals are too fast. Otherwise, I'm afraid I would have made a lot of money by accompanying them for a few days. Inside the city gate, Yu Tian sat cross-legged on the stone edge of the roadside, looking up at the immortals going in and out of the city gate, silently wondering which of them would be rich guests. Which of them would want to look for a guide? Get lost, I don't want a guide. A young man who was also a guide greeted a group of well-dressed and aggressive immortals, but was slapped away by the young immortal leading them. Fortunately, the young man's cultivation was not bad. He was an expert at the nascent soul stage. Otherwise, the young immortal's slap would have killed him instantly. Miserable, so miserable. Yu Tian curled his lips and sighed. He knew that guy at the nascent soul stage. He used to be a respected figure in Boundless City, but since 2 years ago, he actually put down his pride and came out to be a guide. In the past 2 years, although that guy had been bullied a lot, he also earned a lot of money from those experts by acting as a guide. Then, Yu Tian's gaze fell on the group of people. When he heard the clamor behind them, he immediately understood that these people were from the Myriad Sword Sect, and the young man leading them was the Myriad Sword Sect's young master. The Myriad Sword Sect is bullshit. It's just a dog. In the past 2 years, Yu Tian had heard too much news. Naturally, he knew that the Myriad Sword Sect was a second-rate sect on the surface, but in fact, it was a sect attached to the Everlasting Palace. Just like a dog, wherever the Everlasting Palace pointed, the Myriad Sword Sect would bite. I heard that the Myriad Sword Sect has been particularly arrogant in the past hundreds of years. Even the once powerful Rosefinch Holy Sect was bullied miserably by them. Alas, it's like a dog relying on its master's power. Yu Tian secretly shook his head. After retracting his gaze from the group of Myriad Sword Sect people, he shifted his gaze to some people who just entered the city. Suddenly, his eyes lit up and his eyes fell on a handsome young man in bright clothes. A few seconds later, he looked at the 2 people behind the young man. After pondering for a moment, he walked forward with an obsequious smile and respectfully said, "Senior Immortal, you have an extraordinary bearing, handsome, and unrestrained bearing. You're really unfamiliar to me. Is it your first time in Boundless City?" Tan Xiu smiled and nodded, asking, "Are you a guide?" The young man gave him a thumbs up and praised, "Senior Immortal's vision is like a torch. You're truly a dragon among immortals. This lowly one really admires you. This lowly one has been in Boundless City for 18 years and knows every flower, grass, tree, and would hear like the back of my hand. Especially in recent years, since the secret palace of Drunken Immortal Supreme in the Boundless Mountain Range is about to open, so countless forces and powerful beings from the immortal domains have come here. I also know a lot about some special situations here." Tan Xiu casually threw an immortal crystal to Yu Tian, who was pleasantly surprised to receive it. Then, he nodded and bowed with an obsequious smile and said, "If you don't lie to me, you'll be rewarded. But if you dare to brag to me, don't blame me for killing you if you don't know anything." "Yes, yes, yes. This lowly one will absolutely tell you everything I know," replied Yu Tian with a tense expression and carefully. "Are there any inns in Boundless City that are still available?" asked Tan Xiu. "All the restaurants and inns are full." Yu Tian shook his head and said, "Let alone the inns, even most of the aborigines have been driven out of Boundless City and their homes have been occupied." Tan Xiu squinted his eyes and slowly nodded. "Accompany us to stroll around Boundless City. We don't need to fly, just walk." "Walking?" Yu Tian looked surprised and said, Senior Immortal, even if Boundless City is not very big, it will take at least a year and a half to stroll around every street if we walk at our normal speed. Tan Xiu thought for a while and said, then let's find a means of transportation. Here are 20 immortal crystals. You can rent it and take the rest as a reward for your hard work. Yu Tian's eyes lit up and hurriedly asked, how long do you need to rent it, Senior Immortal? Tan Xiu thought for a while and said, 10 days. I think we'll be able to stroll around the entire Boundless City in 10 days. No problem. I'll go right away, said Yu Tian hurriedly. Quickly. Yu Tian drove 2 wind-type beasts over, and behind them was a luxurious caravan. After Tan Xiu, Star Luminous, and Star Peng boarded the caravan, Tan Xiu then said, you drive the carriage. According to your own calculation, you have to stroll around Boundless City in 10 days. Remember, you don't need to be too fast or too slow. 10 days is just right. No problem. Yu Tian was very happy inside. Renting a wind-type beast caravan only cost 1 immortal crystal a day, which meant 10 immortal crystals for 10 days, so he still had 10 left. Adding the 1 Tan Xiu gave him before, he could earn 11 immortal crystals in 10 days, which was simply a fortune. Tang Xiu looked at both sides and said, all right, let's stroll around and introduce the surroundings to us. What kind of place is this and what kind of people live here? You can also tell us about the immortals you think we should introduce or the interesting things that happened here in the past few years. If you can satisfy me, I'll give you 10 more immortal crystals after 10 days. Give me 10 more. Yu Tian gulped down his saliva and nodded with glowing eyes. He then began to introduce the buildings along the way to Tan Xiu, as well as the immortals of many forces. He was very good at expressing himself and had a very clear understanding of the current situation in Boundless City. Through his introduction, Tan Xiu gradually learned about the sects, clans, and a large number of forces that he had never heard of before. That's the 100 Joy House up ahead. It used to be a brothel, a place where some girls used to make a living. But it was occupied by people from the Everlasting Palace. I heard that the good-looking girls stayed in the 100 Joy House to serve them, while the ugly ones were sent away with money. In the past 2 years, more than a dozen powerhouses came to this 100 Joy House to have fun with the girls here, but they ended up having conflicts with the people from the Everlasting Palace. In the end, all the people who came here suffered losses and left. I heard that there's a supremacy stage powerhouse living in this 100 Joy House. But I've never seen who he is or what he looks like. The Everlasting Palace? A chilling light flashed in Tan Xiu's eyes. The Everlasting Palace was the sect that Zither Demon Jiuyao belonged to. Although it was a bit inferior to the Rosefinch Holy Sect, the gap was not that big and it was also one of the top sects in the immortal world. 800 years ago, the entire Everlasting Palace had 2 supremacy stage powerhouses, but there was no Myriad Thunder Supreme. Chapter 1323. Star Luminous, who stood beside Tan Xiu with a gloomy expression, slowly said, how many experts did the Everlasting Palace send? Are there any outstanding characters? Yu Tian turned to glance at Star Luminous and slowly shook his head. I don't know exactly how many experts have come. But according to my observation, there should be at least a few hundred people, right? Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to stay in this 100 Joy building. As for outstanding characters, there is one. What's it called? Star Luminous asked. I heard from others that he's a perfected golden immortal called Toad Monster, said Yu Tian. He's very powerful. Back then, the experts who came to the 100 Joyous House to look for girls were all beaten out by him. Toad Monster. Star Luminous and Star Peng glanced at each other, hatred flashing across their faces. If it weren't for the fact that they knew each other's strength, they would have rushed out and killed them. Tan Xiu asked lightly, what? Do you have a grudge against him? I'm just asking casually. Star Luminous hurriedly shook his head and said, after all, many forces came to the 100 Joyous House to have fun, yet they were all driven away by the Everlasting Palace's people. The more we know about the Everlasting Palace's people, the earlier we can guard against them when we arrive at the secret palace in the future. Tan Xiu nodded slowly, satisfied with Star Luminous' answer. Hiding their identities and waiting for an opportunity to take revenge. Only by knowing how to endure could they survive and compete with the other party again and again. It seemed that his teachings to these two little fellows back then had not been in vain. 8 days later. When the caravan passed by a tea house, Yu Tian introduced, "The immortals of the Inner Pill sect live here. There are hundreds of them, and I heard that their leader is Venerable 100 Refined Immortal, a terrifying supremacy stage powerhouse. Rumor has it that this Inner Pill sect is a great alchemy sect in the immortal world. This time, they even brought a large number of pills with all kinds of miraculous effects. Thus, they are sought after by countless forces. I'm afraid that 100 Refined Immortal Sovereign will be grinning from ear to ear." Tan Xiu said lightly, "You wait outside, we'll go in and buy the pills." Finished. The moment he stood up, he pressed his hands on Star Luminous and Star Peng's shoulders. Their eyes were filled with killing intent as he floated to the teahouse's door. His eyes swept over the 4 golden immortals guarding the door and lightly said, "I want to buy some immortal pills." The 4 of them cupped their fists, and one of them asked, "What is your background?" Tan Xiu casually made up a name and entered the tea house with Star Luminous and Star Peng, who had calmed down. A white-haired old man came to greet them and asked, "Do you have the purple fragrance pill?" The old man sized up Tan Xiu a few times and said with a smile, "There are still some purple fragrance pills left. Honored guests, please follow me." Tan Xiu and the other 2 followed the old man to the 2nd floor and stopped in a corner of the hall. The old man opened the cabinet door, turned around and asked, "How many purple fragrance pills does the esteemed guest need?" "Give us 10, please," said Tan Xiu. The old man faintly smiled and picked a cyan jade bottle. He handed it to Tan Xiu and smilingly said, "There are exactly 10 purple fragrance pills in this porcelain bottle, for a total of 10 million immortal crystals." Tan Xiu took out 100,000 crystal essences and handed it to the old man, asking, "Do you have any thunder pills?" "Thunder pills?" The old man's expression slightly changed. After receiving the 100,000 crystal essences, he cautiously observed Tan Xiu and the other 2 a few times. Then, he solemnly said, "We do have some thunder pills here, but only a few. The price of each thunder pill is also very expensive. Do you really want to buy them, honored guest?" "How much?" asked Tan Xiu. 5 million crystal essences, answered the old man. "Give me one." Tan Xiu nodded. It's inevitable to run into some terrifying perfected golden immortals during this trip to the secret palace. I can use this thunder pill to escape if I'm caught in a desperate situation. The old man nodded and said, "Please follow me to the 3rd floor." Star Luminous and Star Peng followed behind the old man and Tan Xiu. Their expressions were a bit strange and they secretly transmitted their voices to each other. "Senior brother, not only did this great Tang Heavenly Emperor come here with a fake name, but he's also very generous. He even dares to buy a thunder pill. He's definitely not a simple character, so we need to be more vigilant against him. My opinion is the opposite of yours. Since he's willing to buy a thunder pill, it proves that he has the ability to kill a perfected golden immortal. The power of the lightning core could even kill an early-stage perfected golden immortal expert if he was caught off guard. Even a late-stage perfected golden immortal expert would be severely injured if he was caught off guard and struck by the lightning core. If he wants to harm us, he can directly kill us with just a single thunder pill. Hence, he doesn't need to use any tricks on us." "You're right." Soon after, Tan Xiu bought a thunder pill and paid 5 million crystal essences. He also saw most of the 3rd floor of the tea house and gained some understanding of the inner pill sect inside. He also firmly remembered their appearances in his mind. After leaving the tea house, Tan Xiu looked at Yu Tian and lightly said, "Take the 6th road on the left and go straight back to the city gate. We'll be several times faster there." "Understood." Yu Tian didn't know why Tan Xiu changed his mind, but he still respectfully drove the two Windrunner beasts back according to Tan Xiu's instructions. A day later. As the caravan passed by the Everlasting Palace's 100 Joyous House, Tang Xiu looked at the weapon shop in the opposite direction and lightly said, "Let's go inside and pick some handy immortal weapons. Wait for us here." Yu Tian hesitated and said, "Senior Immortal, you can find Blacksmith Old Yu inside if you really want to buy immortal artifacts here." Looking at the time, he should be busy inside. The price of immortal artifacts will be cheaper if you look for him. Your surname is Yu, and the blacksmith you mentioned is also surnamed Yu. Are you a family? Tan Xiu raised his brows. He's my father, said Yu Tian with a dry smile. Usually, my father would forge some weapons in his own shop. But in recent years, he's been called here for 3 days every 10 days to help the people here forge some gadgets. Got it. Tan Xiu casually replied and led Star Luminous and Star Peng into the shop's entrance. Thousand Hammers Sect. It was an equally famous artificer sect like the Artificer sect and also had a supremacy stage powerhouse overseeing it. Moreover, he was also a Grandmaster Artificer who could refine 9th grade immortal artifacts. What do you need to buy, honored guests? A young man in the shop greeted them with a smile and asked. Just take a look around. You can go and busy yourself first, said Tan Xiu lightly. We'll naturally call you over if we see a weapon we like. Understood. The smile on the young man's face immediately disappeared and he turned to leave. After entering the shop, Tan Xiu went straight to a shelf on the second floor. He only glanced at the immortal artifacts placed on it and then ignored them. His eyes swept through the windows of the opposite building and silently memorized the faces of some people inside. Half an hour later. Tan Xiu turned and left. After returning to the carriage, he lightly said, "We can go now." Star Luminous and Star Peng saw Tan Xiu's behavior and a huge mystery arose in their hearts. They followed Tan Xiu this time and noticed some clues. Did you notice it, senior brother? This great Tang Heavenly Emperor is very suspicious, said Star Peng with a voice transmission. You're right. He's indeed suspicious, replied Star Luminous. After we came to the Boundless City, he only stopped at 2 places except for the guide at the city gate. The first place is the 100 Joyous Pavilion, where the Everlasting Palace is located. The second place is here, opposite to the Inner Pills sect. Also, we saw clearly that he didn't come here to buy immortal artifacts but to observe the situation of the Everlasting Palace. I also noticed that, said Star Peng. What I'm wondering now is what his true identity is. Why is he secretly observing the Everlasting Palace and the Inner Pill sect? A glint flashed in Star Luminous' eyes and he said, I'm sure that he's not one of us because we've never seen him in the past 700 or 800 years. Unless his current appearance isn't his real appearance and his aura has changed. I think he should be one of us, senior brother, said Star Peng. But I don't know which side he belongs to. Else, he wouldn't have given us immortal artifacts and pills for no reason, nor would he have kept us with him. He wouldn't have secretly observed the Everlasting Palace and the Inner Pill sect if he wasn't one of us. I don't know if you've noticed a detail or not. What detail? Star Luminous' expression shifted and he immediately asked with a voice transmission. Star Peng said, when we were outside the Inner Pill sect, we wanted to kill the people of the Inner Pill sect, but he directly stood up and pressed his hand on our shoulders. Star Luminous fell into silence. He didn't pay attention to it before, but after hearing Star Peng's words, he immediately realized that it was absolutely abnormal. Did he discover our true identity? Asked Star Luminous in disbelief after a long time. I don't know, said Star Peng with a forced smile. Inside the city gate. Tan Xiu took out 10 immortal crystals and casually threw them to Yu Tian. Then, he lightly said, You've performed well these days, so this is your reward. Remember, we're strangers from now on. You've never seen us before. I understand. Yu Tian's heart trembled, and he immediately said respectfully. After returning to the myriad golden sail with Star Luminous and Star Peng at the fastest speed, Tan Xiu halted his pace on the second floor. He looked at Star Luminous and Star Peng with a tranquil expression and lightly said, "The harvest this time is pretty good. You two should have inquired about some information you want to know. So you should know who you should pay attention to avoid when you go to the secret palace later, right?" "I got it." The two nodded. "We'll set off in a month and a half," said Tan Xiu. Upon seeing that Tan Xiu wanted to go to the third floor, Star Luminous hurriedly asked, "Great Tang Heavenly Emperor, can we ask you something?" Tan Xiu had his back to them and didn't stop his pace. Instead, he lightly said, "You've already guessed it, so why bother asking? Some things will lose their meaning once they're revealed." Chapter 13:24. The return from the immortal world would end at the end of this month, but the story would not end just like that. Quiet Night will continue to bring happiness to everyone in the form of a side story. Brothers and sisters will decide who to write the side story and what story to write. After following our WeChat account, you can vote under today's image. Quiet Night's WeChat account is JYJS00, or you can just search for Quiet Night and follow us _. Tan Xiu didn't want to expose his identity, even though he knew that Star Luminous and Star Peng were very loyal to the Rosefinch Holy Sect. In today's immortal world, powerful enemies were everywhere. He had yet to find out how many people had taken advantage of the Inner Pill sect and the Everlasting Palace's attack on the Rosefinch Holy Sect to help the evildoers. Enemies. He had to kill them all to prevent future troubles. After returning to the immortal world, Tan Xiu had already made some plans, but the first part of the big plan was not to take revenge, but to quickly improve his strength and cultivate a large number of experts. Otherwise, he would not be able to take revenge against the Inner Pill sect and the Everlasting Palace even if his cultivation returned to its peak. He arrived at the third floor. Tan Xiu looked at Apotheosis Bella, who came to greet him and calmly said, "I've already inquired about some useful news. After entering the secret palace of Drunken Immortal Supreme's inheritance, my first task is to plunder the wealth inside. On the other hand, I'll collect some interest first." "Are we targeting the Inner Pill sect and Everlasting Palace?" asked Apotheosis Bella. "That's right." Tan Xiu nodded and said, "The number of people from these two forces entering the secret palace is probably not small. However, in order to fight for the opportunity, there was a competitive relationship even among their own people. When the time came, they would definitely not be united, nor would they all move together. As long as they split up, I can fish in troubled waters and cause them some losses. Besides, there was a lot of wealth in the secret palace, but did the Golden Immortals and Zenith Heaven Golden Immortals of both sides not have wealth? It's like killing two birds with one stone. I believe in your ability, but pay attention to your safety." Apotheosis Bella nodded. After all, there will be many perfected Golden Immortals among the people who will enter the secret palace this time. Some of them even have the strength of perfected Golden Immortals that can almost be compared to early-stage Supremes. You must not take it lightly. Tan Xiu said, "I understand." The second floor. Star Luminous and Star Peng were a bit excited. Although they had made some guesses about the Great Tang Heavenly Emperor's identity, they were finally able to confirm that he was one of them. This was simply the best news they had heard in hundreds of years. After all, a powerhouse with unfathomable cultivation belonged to their camp, which might be helpful to them after they entered the secret palace. This Great Tang Heavenly Emperor is very rich. If he really is a friend of our Rosefinch Holy Sect, can we borrow some immortal crystals and crystal essences from him? Our Rosefinch Holy Sect is now at the end of its tether. Without the assistance of immortal crystals and crystal essences, the cultivation speed of our disciples has become very slow. If this goes on, we won't even need a millennium before our sect is breached and our Rosefinch Holy Sect will be destroyed, said Star Peng with a face full of excitement. Star Luminous suppressed the excitement in his heart and forced a smile. The most important thing now is that we don't know his true identity. If we rashly mention this matter, the other party may not necessarily agree to it. The most important thing is that the current predicament of our Rosefinch Holy Sect must not be spread out easily. Otherwise, Once the enemy learns about it, they will monitor us more closely. When that time comes, it'll be impossible for our people to sneak out again. Star Peng felt as though a basin of cold water was poured on him from head to toe, and a bitter expression appeared on his face. He knew that what his senior brother Star Luminous said was right. Everyone else thought that the Rosefinch Holy Sect had a deep heritage and wouldn't lack immortal crystals and crystal essences in a short time. But only their own people were aware of their own situation. For hundreds of years, the sect had been maintaining the sect-guarding Grand Array on the continent, which consumed a terrifying amount of immortal crystals and crystal essences. Coupled with the fact that the clansmen absorbed the immortal force from the immortal crystals and crystal essences to accelerate their cultivation speed, it was like adding snow to snow. Even if the sect had a deep heritage, it was now at the end of its tether after such a long period of consumption. Suddenly, the two of them appeared at the window in a flash and looked at the surging river in the distance with shocked expressions. They could clearly see that above the river, 3 perfected golden immortals were besieging a white-robed immortal. The white-robed immortal was also a perfected golden immortal, but he was a level higher than the 3, at least a mid-level perfected golden immortal. That's strange. How did Tao Master Qing Feng of the pristine immortal Confucian sect provoke the Myriad Sword sect? The pristine immortal Confucian sect has always been a sect with a pure heart and few desires. They rarely participate in the battles between the various forces in the immortal world. Star Peng furrowed his brows and muttered with a puzzled look in his eyes. A cold light flashed in Star Luminous' eyes and he said in a deep voice, "Our Rosefinch Holy Sect may not have any friendship with the pristine immortal Confucian sect, but the enemy of our enemy is our friend. The Myriad Sword sect has been following the everlasting palaces as to kill our Rosefinch Holy Sect for hundreds of years. Too many of our friends and relatives have died in the hands of the Myriad Sword sect's experts. It's all our fault for being too weak. Even if we go out to help, I'm afraid we won't be able to help much. Else, I really want to rush out and fight side by side with the pristine immortal Confucian sect's fellow immortals to exterminate all those Myriad Sword sect bastards." Star Peng also clenched his fists and unwillingly said, "There are too many powerful enemies here. If we rashly help the pristine immortal Confucian sect, our identities will surely be exposed and will be hunted down by powerful enemies." On the 3rd floor, Tan Xiao and Apotheosis Bella also noticed the fight outside. After they appeared at the window, Tan Xiao frowned and asked, "Who are they?" Apotheosis Bella narrowed her eyes and slowly said, "He's Tao Master Qing Feng of the pristine immortal Confucian sect. I've met him once. Tao Master Qing Feng is a righteous man with good connections in the immortal world. I'm sure you've seen the clothes worn by those 3 perfected golden immortals, yes? They're from the Myriad Sword sect. The pristine immortal Confucian sect. The Myriad Sword sect." Tan Xiao slightly furrowed his brows and a glint flashed in his eyes. If it were some other sects and the Myriad Sword sect's disciples fighting, he might have calmly sat on the fishing platform and turned a blind eye to it. But he had some relationship with the pristine immortal Confucian sect, especially since Shuiyu had obtained the inheritance of Tao Master Guai of the pristine immortal Confucian sect. She could be regarded as half a disciple of the pristine immortal Confucian sect. It wouldn't be a good thing if he just watched. Apotheosis Bella's eyes swept over Tan Xiao's face and slowly asked, "Xiao, do you want to help Tao Master Qing Feng?" Tan Xiao nodded and said, "Shuiyu has obtained the inheritance of Tao Master Guai of the pristine immortal Confucian sect, so she can be regarded as half a member of the sect. Besides, the Myriad Sword sect's evil deeds over the past hundreds of years have caused huge losses to the Rosefinch Holy Sect, so I want to help Tao Master Qing Feng." "I'll go," Apotheosis Bella said. "Let Sable Fiend Scorpio go." Tan Xiao shook his head. "She's a late-stage perfected golden immortal and can fight the 3 perfected golden immortals of the Myriad Sword sect alone. Adding Tao Master Qing Feng to the mix, it won't be a problem for him to escape quickly." Apotheosis Bella thought for a while and nodded. "All right. There are too many people from the Myriad Sword sect here, as well as their backer, the Everlasting Palace. Only death awaits Tao Master Qing Feng if he gets entangled with them. Saving him now is the wisest choice. Tan Xiu summoned Sablefiend Scorpio and said, "Have you seen the fight outside?" "I saw them, but I don't know them," said Sablefiend Scorpio respectfully. "That white-robed immortal is Tao Master Qing Feng of the pristine immortal Confucianist sect," said Tan Xiu. "The 3 people fighting him are from the Myriad Sword sect. I'll give you a mission to help Tao Master Qing Feng. You don't need to kill him, just take him and escape from here as fast as possible. Wait until this storm is over and then sneak back." "Understood." Sablefiend Scorpio thought that Tan Xiu wanted her to help Tao Master Qing Feng kill the 3 perfected golden immortals of the Myriad Sword sect. If that was the case, the difficulty would be greatly increased. But it wouldn't be difficult for her to help Tao Master Qing Feng escape. After a while, Sablefiend Scorpio silently left the Myriad Golden Sail and went to another direction, ready to act at any time. "Ha ha ha. Tao Master Qing Feng, even if your cultivation is a level higher than ours, I'm afraid you won't be able to hold on for long against the joint attack of us 3 martial brothers. Since you dare to poke your nose into my Myriad Sword sect's business, you must be prepared to be annihilated." North Sword Xiu of the Myriad Sword sect stabbed Tao Master Qing Feng with his sword and laughed loudly. "Your Myriad Sword sect's disciples are tyrannical and even dare to kill mortals wantonly," said Tao Master Qing Feng coldly. "I must meddle in this matter. I'm killing your disciples to tell you that if you dare to kill mortals wantonly and bully them again, there will be others who will meddle in this injustice." The smile on North Sword Xiu's face faded like the tide. He glared at Tao Master Qing Feng and increased his attack power again as he shouted, "Meddling in other people's business will only lead to death. You killed my disciples, so you must pay with your life. Your pristine immortal Confucianist sect may be stationed in Boundless City, but if anyone dares to help you, it's equivalent to starting a sect war with my Myriad Sword sect." Tao Master Qing Feng no longer spoke and kept casting various immortal arts and divine abilities. The scrolls in the sky turned into golden characters that constantly bombarded the attacks of the 3 enemies. In a radius of hundreds of thousands of miles, at least hundreds of thousands of immortals heard the conversation between the 2, and nearly all of them looked at the 3 perfected golden immortals of the Myriad Sword sect with contemptuous looks. Although they felt that Tao Master Qing Feng was too stupid to meddle in other people's business, North Sword Xiu actually wanted to bring the sect war to the table, which was simply shameless. Because North Sword Xiu's disciple was killed, so he should avenge his own disciple. Why did he have to drag his 2 martial brothers into it? And if the people from the pristine immortal Confucianist sect rushed to help Tao Master Qing Feng, it would lead to a sect war. What kind of logic was this? It was simply bullying people just because their Myriad Sword sect was stronger than the pristine immortal Confucianist sect. Among the hundreds of thousands of people, a cold light flashed in Nine Nether Swordmeister's eyes. He unleashed his innate natal immortal artifact and was ready to attack. He and Tao Master Qing Feng had a life-and-death friendship. Now that they met here and saw that Tao Master Qing Feng was in danger, he couldn't care less about provoking a big trouble. Don't move. Chapter 1325. Venerable Netherworld, who stood next to Nine Nether Swordmeister, instantly grabbed his arm and indifferently shook his head. The Myriad Sword sect is behind those 3. You should be well aware of the sect's strength. Besides, they have the Everlasting Palace behind them. Even if you can help Tao Master Qing Feng for the time being, I'm afraid that the Myriad Sword sect will hunt you down after the secret palace opens. But I can't just watch Tao Master Qing Feng suffer an accident. Nine Nether Swordmeister angrily retorted. You know what kind of relationship I have with him. Venerable Netherworld was silent for a while and slowly said, Tao Master Qing Feng has a lot of friends. I think there are only a few people like you at the moment. Just wait and it won't be too late for you to act if someone else attacks. Else, I'm afraid you'll be constantly hunted down in the future once the Myriad Sword sect hates you out of jealousy. But, Nine Nether Swordmeister struggled free from Venerable Netherworld's hand and looked hesitant. Venerable Netherworld's face turned cold and he said in a deep voice, No buts. There are innumerable powerhouses here, and the relationships between the various forces are complicated. No one can tell who's the enemy and who's the friend. Endure until someone can't bear it anymore and then you can act. I won't stand idly by when the time comes. 9 Nether Swordmeister hesitated and eventually fell silent. He was perfectly aware that he could only save Dao Master Qing Feng from danger even if he were to act. It was simply impossible for him to kill the 3 perfected golden immortals of the Myriad Sword sect. After all, the Myriad Sword sect's experts were not the only ones who came here. If Venerable Netherworld could help them, the odds of solving the current problem would be much higher. This is interesting. In the northwest, a hazy figure instantly appeared in the middle of the battle. The opponent was a burly man with blue hair and an immortal sword on his back. Blue tide rising. The immortal sword was unsheathed and instantly formed a blue tide of swords that slashed toward the 3 perfected golden immortals of the Myriad Sword sect. 9 Nether Swordmeister's expression slightly changed and he said in a low voice, "That Sky Ocean Immortal Domain's destitute Whale Sea Emperor. I didn't expect him to be friends with Dao Master Qing Feng." Venerable Netherworld shook his head and sighed. This destitute Whale Sea Emperor and Daoist Qing Feng have similar characters and temperament. It's not strange for them to become best friends. It's just that if the poor Whale Sea Emperor makes a move now, he will definitely be hated by the Myriad Sword sect. He is drawing hatred to the sea race of the Heavenly Ocean Immortal Realm. 9 Nether Swordmeister coldly said, "Wretched Whale Sea Emperor is a heroic and righteous man who treats his friends with all sincerity. It's for this reason that the Heavenly Ocean Immortal Domain is very solid. Whether it's the Heavenly Ocean Immortal Domain's oceanic clans or the mortals and immortals living on that continent, everyone is very united. On top of that, many powerful cultivators who admire Cheongjing Sea Emperor have all gone to seek refuge with him. As a result, the Heavenly Ocean Mystic region has become very powerful. Unless the 10,000 Swords sect sends their entire sect, they won't be able to cause much damage to Cheongjing Sea Emperor and the Heavenly Ocean Mystic region." Venerable Netherworld nodded silently. Just as he was about to speak, his expression suddenly changed slightly, and his gaze fell on another figure who attacked. That is, 9 Nether Swordmeister's expression changed. He instantly recognized the other's identity because he had seen him before. Then, he slowly said, "Undemonized Sovereign Mo." Venerable Netherworld frowned and murmured, "Undemonized Sovereign Mo is neither righteous nor evil in the immortal world. He has always acted casually, but I've never heard of him having any friendship with Dao Master Qing Feng. How come he's willing to offend the Myriad Swords sect and help Dao Master Qing Feng now? I can't care about that anymore. Since even undemonized Sovereign Mo is willing to help Dao Master Qing Feng, I can't just stay here and watch the fun," said 9 Nether Swordmeister in a deep voice. Having said that, his figure then soared into the sky and instantly appeared in the middle of the battle. Then, he shouted, "The Myriad Swords sect is relying on their numbers to bully others. I, 9 Nether Swordmeister, can't just watch my old friend Qing Feng get bullied by others." Dao Master Qing Feng was very touched at the moment. He didn't dare to imagine that 3 of his old friends would come forward to help him at this moment. While looking at the 3 powerful enemies of the Myriad Swords sect, he loudly said, "Dao Master Qing Feng, can't thank you enough for your friendship, my 3 old friends. You know my character. I don't like hypocrisy. Since you've already taken action, then join me to kill these 3 rascals. Count me in." Venerable Netherworld soared into the sky and brandished his immortal sword, instantly sending North Jianxiu flying. If it wasn't for the fact that North Jianxiu had a very high-grade defensive immortal artifact, he would have been killed by Venerable Netherworld's sword. Venerable Qing Feng stared blankly. Just as he was about to ask about it, he suddenly heard 9 Nether Swordmeister's voice. He immediately understood and gratefully said, "Thank you, Immortal Netherworld." Venerable Netherworld was a bit regretful that he couldn't kill North Sword Xiu with his sword strike. He slowly shook his head and said, "I didn't take action for you, but for this meddlesome brother of mine." 9 Nether Swordmeister laughed aloud and said, "We're best friends, so there's no need to be polite. The Myriad Swords sect is bullying us, so we can't be afraid of them. I once heard a saying from a certain supreme great emperor. He said, When a friend is in trouble, draw your sword to help him. Be happy with gratitude and enmity, and kill to your heart's content. It's a pity that the supreme great emperor I admire is no longer here, else some sects wouldn't have dared to be so overbearing and forced others to resist. The hundreds of thousands of immortals present all wore strange expressions. They could tell who that supreme great emperor was from 9 Nether Swordmeister's words. Many powerhouses had also heard of the saying, when a friend is in trouble, draw your sword to help him. Be happy with gratitude and enmity, and kill to your heart. Star Cultivation Great Emperor. He was once the most dazzling powerhouse in the immortal world. He used to make many friends with this saying, earning the admiration of countless great divine abilities in the immortal world. If it weren't for the fact that their cultivation was too low and they didn't have the qualifications to make friends with Star Cultivation Great Emperor, 80 to 90% of the hundreds of thousands of immortals present would have wanted to make friends with him and become true friends. But now, the indigent Whale Sea Emperor, Undemonized Sovereign Mo, 9 Nether Swordmeister, and Venerable Netherworld, the 4 perfected golden immortals, all took action to help Tao Master Ching Feng. What was the difference between this and the Rosefinch Holy Sect being besieged by powerful enemies in the past 700 to 800 years? Among the immortals, Sable Fiend Scorpio retracted her killing intent and quietly observed the situation before her. The order she received was to save Venerable Ching Feng. Now that 4 perfected golden immortals had taken action, Venerable Ching Feng's life was not in danger for the time being. Hence, she had to see the situation clearly before making a plan. Thousands of miles away, a perfected golden immortal from the Myriad Swords sect, who was in charge of leading the sect's disciples to the boundless mountain range and was about to enter the secret palace, coldly looked at Tao Master Ching Feng's group of 5 in the air. Next to him, an old man with a calm face and a cold look in his eyes slowly said, "Tell those 3 to give up on besieging Tao Master Ching Feng and wait until the secret palace opens." This, the burly late-stage perfected golden immortal from the Myriad Swords sect looked hesitant, but he could only helplessly sigh after seeing the cold look on the old man next to him. He instantly soared into the sky and blasted out an immortal streamer to block the attacks from the 3 sects' powerhouses. His body slightly trembled and he coldly shouted, "I'm North Peak Hung Lai, an elder of the Myriad Swords sect. 5 of you, please stop for the time being." Upon hearing this, Tao Master Ching Feng's group of 5 immediately gave up on chasing and indifferently stared at North Peak Hung Lai. "The enmity between us will be settled after the secret palace opens," said North Peak Hung Lai proudly. "I think all of you are here for the inheritance of Drunken Immortal Supreme in the secret palace. You don't want to fight to the death before entering the secret palace, right?" Tao Master Ching Feng knew that this matter was caused by him, so he immediately cupped his fists and said to the 4 people around him, "Tao Master Ching Feng is very grateful for your help. However, he's right. All of you are here for the inheritance of Drunken Immortal Supreme in the secret palace. Such a great immortal fate can't be affected by my matter. Since the Myriad Swords sect wants to stop for the time being, then we don't need to be overbearing. Whether it's to enter the secret palace or to wait until the secret palace is over, we'll talk about it later." "Alright then." Indigent Whale Sea Emperor shot an indifferent look at North Peak Hung Lai and immediately snorted coldly. He then flashed back to the camp of the powerhouses from the Heavenly Sea Immortal Domain he brought. Undemonized Sovereign Mo had never uttered a word since he attacked. Now that the situation had reached this point, he coldly smiled and said, "I, Mo Xia, am a rootless duckweed. I kill whoever I want to kill and help whoever I want to help. If your Myriad Sword sect dares to provoke Tao Master Ching Feng again, don't blame me for slaughtering your sect to vent my dissatisfaction." Having said that, he then turned to look at Tao Master Ching Feng and lightly said, "You and I will be partners from now on. We'll kill 1 enemy if they come, and we'll kill both of them if 2 enemies come." "Understood." Tao Master Ching Feng nodded solemnly and said with a warm feeling inside, "I'll repeat what I said before. Those who bully my friends are my enemies," said 9 Nether Swordmeister indifferently. "I'll deal with them even if I have to lose my life." North Peak Hung Lai, I, 9 Nether Swordmeister, hereby declare that you must be prepared to become my enemy whenever you're ready to deal with my old friend Qing Feng. Having said that, he slightly nodded to Tao Master Qing Feng and then quickly retreated with Venerable Netherworld. Killing intent surged inside North Peak Honglia's heart, but he suddenly sighed inwardly when he recalled that person's words. Then, he slowly said, it's hard to say who will die and who will live in the secret palace. Since there's a grudge between us, there's no need to wait until the secret palace is over to settle it. I hope we can meet there. Understood, replied Tao Master Qing Feng indifferently. The battle between powerhouses quickly calmed down. As Tao Master Qing Feng and undemonized Sovereign Mo left, the myriad sword sex people also quickly disappeared before everyone's eyes. Sable Fiend Scorpio quietly returned to the myriad golden sail and directly entered the heavenly abode artifact. She didn't ask anything, nor did she want to know the relationship between Tan Xiu and Tao Master Qing Feng. The most important thing for her now was to cultivate and serve Tan Xiu for 5,000 years. Chapter 1326. The third layer of the myriad golden sail. Tan Xiu and Apotheosis Bella stood side by side. Although the battle had ended, the two of them didn't retract their gazes. I didn't expect Tao Master Qing Feng to have such a good relationship with people. Even 9 Nether Swordmeister and Venerable Netherworld didn't hesitate to offend the myriad sword sect. Looks like my good intentions won't come in handy, said Tan Xiu with a faint smile. Who doesn't have a few true friends after living in the immortal world for thousands of years? Apotheosis Bella smiled and said, it's just that I didn't expect that undemonized Sovereign Mo to have a friendship with Tao Master Qing Feng. It seems that the upcoming battle in the secret palace will be more brutal than I imagined. A complicated look flashed in Tan Xiu's eyes. Apotheosis Bella's words deeply stabbed his heart. He once thought that he had a few life and death friends, but in the end, the one who hurt him the most was his best friend. I suddenly feel a bit regretful, Tan Xiu suddenly said. Apotheosis Bella turned her head with a confused look on her beautiful face and asked, regretful about what? I regret that I brought too few perfected golden immortals, said Tan Xiu. Otherwise, I could have hunted more happily in the secret palace. Apotheosis Bella forced a smile and said, Xiu, I don't want you to take risks before you become stronger. When we fought side by side, we were chased by powerful enemies. You said something to me at that time that I still remember to this day, it's never too late for a gentleman to take revenge. As long as there's life, there's still hope. We'll make our enemies pay a painful price when we become stronger. Tan Xiu took a deep breath and suppressed the killing intent in his heart. He slowly nodded and said, don't worry. I'm not a reckless person. I won't easily fight them if I don't have full confidence. The main purpose of this trip to the secret palace is to obtain cultivation resources and obtain a lot of wealth. Time flew by. In the blink of an eye, it was time for the secret palace to open. When the red sun rose from the east of the boundless mountains, thousands of rays of light dyed the entire sky the color of blood. A terrifying pressure descended from the sky and landed directly on the undulating mountain range. Ah! Countless cries of agony could be heard coming from the boundless mountains. In order to be the first to enter the secret palace, these people were hiding in the boundless mountain range, preparing to enter the secret palace as soon as it opened. Among them were a large number of golden immortals and some zenith golden immortals. However, the terrifying pressure was so terrifying that only 4 or 5 perfected golden immortals managed to escape in a sorry state. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that they were seriously injured at this time. If they wanted to enter the secret palace again, the risk factor would increase a lot. At this moment, Tan Xiu had already summoned Sable Fiend Scorpio from the heavenly abode artifact. He didn't care about Star Luminous and Star Peng's confused expressions. He looked at the boundless mountain range and slowly said, you're indeed worthy to be the strongest expert in the immortal world 80,000 years ago. Just the immortal light from opening the secret palace is already so powerful. I'm afraid that the secret palace is even more dangerous. We must fight even if it's dangerous, said Star Tears. I'm afraid you won't be able to stay in the heavenly abode artifact after entering the secret palace. Tan Xiu nodded and said, but you should be able to return to the heavenly abode artifact after we enter. I hope you'll have a great harvest in the secret palace. At this moment, a 7-colored rainbow gradually emerged under the terrifying pressure. A square entrance about 50 kilometers wide appeared and a soft white light instantly spread out. The secret palace has opened. Let's go. A group of figures flashed toward the 50-kilometer wide entrance with tens of thousands of people at the forefront. Nearly all of them were perfected golden immortals, yet all of them disappeared in the white light. Tan Xiu had never seen such a scene before. He looked at the millions of golden immortals and perfected golden immortals rushing toward the entrance of the secret palace. He took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, I suspect there's a teleportation array at the entrance to the secret palace. If we're separated by the teleportation array after we enter, remember to inform each other's location through the message token. The nearest people should immediately gather together. Don't try to show off and call for help immediately if you encounter any danger. Thank you, Great Tang Heavenly Emperor. The two cupped their fists and thanked him gratefully. Tan Xiu took a deep breath and flew toward the direction of the entrance. Buzz. When Tang Xiu's figure submerged into the white light, a huge energy instantly wrapped him up. Along with a burst of dizziness, when Tang Xiu's vision was restored, he found that he was already in the middle of a rolling mountain range. The mountain peaks here towered into the clouds and were at least tens of thousands of meters high. There were also nameless trees that stood on the ground and had blue sky above their heads. They were nearly thousands of meters high, and some of them were at least tens of thousands of meters high. Being here made one feel as if they had suddenly become a drop in the ocean. Suddenly, a faint aura came from Tan Xiu's left side. In nearly an instant, Tan Xiu wore an invisibility talisman and restrained all his aura, silently blending into the 10-meter-high bushes. This is the Yuanyang fruit. After Tan Xiu calmed down, he glanced around. To his surprise, he saw 9 dazzling golden fruits a dozen meters away. With just a glance, he immediately determined that these were Yuanyang fruits, a kind of spiritual fruit that could increase a cultivator's essence. Sure enough, there are treasures everywhere in this secret palace. After 80,000 years, I'm afraid any spiritual grass here has already become extraordinary, right? Tan Xiu sighed inwardly. Half a quarter of an hour later. Tan Xiu sensed that the originally faint aura had become clearer. When a burly man in a golden robe with long hair got closer and closer to him, Tan Xiu could clearly see the other party's face. It was a golden immortal. Tan Xiu pondered for a moment and didn't kill the other party. Instead, he quietly waited for the other party to pass by. Then, he quietly picked the 9 Yuanyang fruits and put them into his interspatial ring. Afterward, he took out the message talismans of the other 4 and sent them out. Soon after, Tan Xiu received the message talismans sent by the other 4. After figuring out the direction they were teleported to, his brows suddenly wrinkled. It was because he found that Sablefiend Scorpio was the closest to him, and the distance between the two was tens of millions of kilometers. It might not take a long time to fly there openly, but the two parties needed to avoid other people and stay vigilant against the potential crises in this secret palace. Therefore, they wouldn't meet for a while. Soon, while Tan Xiu was on his way, he met 2 more people, both of whom were golden immortals. Since Tan Xiu couldn't identify them, he didn't alarm them. He watched the 2 of them leave in 2 different directions while guarding against each other. Then, he continued on his way. Half a day later. Tan Xiu had only traveled hundreds of thousands of kilometers. He encountered more than a dozen groups of immortals along the way, but he didn't encounter anyone, nor did he alarm them. It was only when he discovered that there was a fight ahead that he silently stopped and hid nearby. Tan Xiu clearly saw the 2 parties fighting over an immortal grass. The immortal grass was called solitary thread grass, a very rare immortal grass in the immortal world that had the effect of healing immortals' immortal souls. It even had a very good effect on perfected golden immortals. A late-stage golden immortal expert and an early-stage perfected golden immortal expert. Interesting. That late-stage Golden Immortal expert has the strength comparable to a perfected Golden Immortal. It seems his identity isn't simple. It's a pity that he's wearing an immortal mask that isolates spiritual sense from probing. There's no way to see his true appearance. I'll wait for the two of them to fight each other to the death, then I'll be the fisherman to reap the benefits. I can't rashly fight with others in this secret palace, else I'll be in more danger once I get injured. As Tan Xiu pondered, he watched the two people fighting even more fiercely. Just when the late-stage Golden Immortal expert was seriously injured by the perfected Golden Immortal expert and was about to give up on the solitary thread grass, his expression suddenly changed. Two unexpected sword lights swept across the nearby thicket. The towering trees were not cut down, but the Golden Immortal was hit by the two immortal swords at the same time, and even his immortal soul was instantly obliterated. Get the fuck out. The perfected Golden Immortal's expression changed and he instantly dashed toward the solitary thread grass. In nearly the blink of an eye, he uprooted the solitary thread grass and quickly stuffed it into his interspatial ring. Whoosh! Whoosh! Two figures flickered lightning fast and instantly appeared in front of the perfected Golden Immortal. The white-haired old man on the left in a brown robe grinned and said, "Hand over the solitary thread grass and I'll spare your puny life. Else, you'll end up the same as him." The perfected Golden Immortal sneered and said in a deep voice, "I may not be your match even if I go all out, but do you dare to chase me openly if I want to escape? Danger lurks everywhere in this secret palace, and if you're unlucky, you'll either run into other powerhouses or the restrictions set up by Drunken Immortal Supreme. If you think a solitary thread grass is worth risking your life for, then go ahead and chase me." With that said, his figure had already shot into the distance, and at that moment, his powerful aura had completely erupted. Damn! The complexions of the two perfected Golden Immortals greatly changed and they angrily watched the other fleeing at top speed. After chasing for thousands of miles, they directly chose to give up. They indeed didn't dare to chase the enemy in this perilous secret palace because it was simply not worth it to throw their lives away for a solitary thread grass. Tan Xiu tailed them. Since the perfected Golden Immortal who obtained the solitary thread grass was fleeing in the direction he was heading, he took a detour after the two perfected Golden Immortals stopped and followed them all the way. Chapter 1327. Boom! The abrupt saber light severed several towering trees with a diameter of tens of meters. Although the early-stage perfected Golden Immortal expert had been vigilantly observing the surroundings, he was caught off guard and was severely injured by the attack. He was sent flying and smashed into a tree. In fact, he had already retracted that huge aura, but the enemy was extremely cunning and had actually hidden right in front of him. As a result, the heavy injuries he suffered were extremely serious. Even if he immediately swallowed a purple fragrance pill, he still wouldn't be able to recover from his injuries in a short period of time. Who are you? Get the fuck out. The perfected Golden Immortal unleashed his innate artifact, an iron chain-like artifact, and shouted while staring ahead with vigilance. Ahead. A burly figure slowly appeared in front of the perfected Golden Immortal. His body was over 3 meters tall, and there was a sharp horn on his head. There were even several sharp spikes on his shoulders. The most eye-catching thing about him were his arms. He had a total of 4 arms, and each of them was holding a type of immortal weapon. Hand over your interspatial ring and I may spare your life. Else, you'll die today. Thornhead Sage licked his purple lips and his eyes were like a dormant viper as he stared at the perfected Golden Immortal. It's you. Venerable Primal Forest's expression changed. He had seen Thornhead Sage before and knew that the other party was a mid-stage perfected Golden Immortal. If he were to fight head-on, he wouldn't be his opponent even if he was in his peak state. Not to mention that he had just been seriously injured by the sneak attack. Hee, it seems you know who I am. Thornhead Sage grinned. Very well, since you know me, you should know my strength. Do as I say and hand over your interspatial ring to me, and I'll spare your life. Else, I'll kill you in this secret palace even if I have to expose myself and chase you thousands of miles away. Venerable Primordial Forest shouted in a deep voice, I've fought many powerful enemies since I came to this secret palace. I didn't get any other treasures except for the solitary thread herb. I can give you the solitary thread herb, but we must avoid fighting. The solitary thread herb? Thornhead Sage's expression shifted. He could tell that Venerable Primal Forest was afraid of him and immediately nodded with satisfaction. Fine. You've paid a big price since you chose to hand over the solitary thread herb. I agree to your request. Take it out. Venerable Primal Forest took out a thread grass from his interspatial ring and threw it at Thornhead Great Sage. Good stuff. Thornedge Great Sage was overjoyed. With the single thread grass, even if his immortal soul was seriously injured, it could quickly recover. In this dangerous secret palace, it was equivalent to having half a life. Buzz, the rainbow-like sword shadow instantly swept past piercing Ray Great Sage's eyes. As a defensive immortal artifact on his body shattered, a heavy feeling in his chest caused him to spit out a mouthful of blood. The moment he grabbed the single thread grass, he prepared to retreat and adjust his breathing before killing this damned bastard. But to his horror, he discovered that dozens of talismans had appeared all around him. Heavenly Talisman Formation. A fiendish grin appeared on Venerable Primordial Forest's face. Along with the explosion of talismans, thread-like lightning finally formed a dazzling star chart. In the blink of an eye, the power of the Heavenly Talisman Formation exploded. Damn it! Thornhead Great Sage instantly put the single thread grass into his interspatial ring and took out a bamboo hat-shaped defensive immortal artifact. But before he had the time to cover himself, the Heavenly Talisman Formation exploded. The explosion of this formation not only caused Thornhead Great Sage to suffer heavy injuries, but even if he managed to keep his life, he was now riddled with scars and couldn't fight anymore. Venerable Primordial Forest also spurted out a mouthful of blood. If it wasn't for an immortal sword that appeared out of thin air in his hand, he would have fallen down. The Heavenly Talisman Formation was very effective in killing enemies, but its only shortcoming was that it would also affect the user. He was seriously injured before, and now, the aftermath of the Heavenly Talisman Formation made his injury even more serious. Puff, a sword light swept across. Even though Venerable Primordial Forest saw the sword light coming, he was only able to retreat for tens of meters before he was split into two halves. With a horrified expression, his immortal soul was about to flee, but it was hit by a lightning talisman and eventually turned into ashes. Killing people and seizing their treasures is indeed interesting. After Tan Xiu found Venerable Primordial Forest's interspatial ring, he instantly saw Thornhead Great Sage. The corner of his mouth curved into a smile. Ignoring the pleading eyes of Thornhead Great Sage, he killed him and searched his interspatial ring. Then, he buried the two bodies as fast as he could and disappeared into the jungle. Half a quarter of an hour later, whoosh! 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 3 lightning-fast figures instantly appeared at the scene where the fight had taken place. The 3 of them looked at each other with hostility and were on guard against each other. When they discovered that there were traces of a fight here, they left in 3 different directions at the same time. In the jungle. Tan Xiu quietly hurried along while observing the things in the interspatial rings of Venerable Primordial Forest and Thornhead Great Sage. To his satisfaction, both of them had a lot of good things, including a lot of immortal crystals and crystal essences. Thornhead Great Sage, in particular, had obtained a lot of heavenly and earthly treasures in the short period of time he came to the secret palace. Plus, he had hidden and killed several unlucky people, so the treasures in his interspatial ring were several times more than the wealth of Venerable Primordial Forest. While moving forward, Tan Xiu found a lot of precious medicinal herbs and even found a lot of immortal stones, immortal crystals, and crystal essences scattered in the bushes. According to Tan Xiu's speculation, the possibility of immortal stones, immortal crystals, and crystal essences in this secret palace was very small. The immortal stones, immortal crystals, and crystal essences that appeared in the bushes were likely discarded by drunken Immortal Supreme before he left. Buzz, suddenly, Tan Xiu felt as though he had touched a thread. Just when he wanted to retreat, a huge suction force instantly sucked him into a special space. Congratulations on triggering the drunken immortal chessboard, little friend. As a clear voice passed into Tan Xiu's ears, a white-haired and bearded old man appeared out of thin air in front of Tan Xiu. The old man was leaning on a dragon-headed crutch with a purple gold gourd hanging on top of it. A wisp of spiritual sense. Tan Xiu slowly cupped his fists and said, "This junior, Tan Xiu, greets senior drunken immortal." The old man stroked his beard and smilingly asked, "How do you know I'm drunken immortal supreme, little friend?" "Maybe I'm the guardian left by drunken immortal supreme." Tan Xiu lightly smiled and said, "The most notable feature of drunken immortal supreme is that he never leaves his liquor. This is his secret palace, and there's also a wine gourd hanging on your crutch, so naturally, you're drunken immortal supreme." Smart. The wisp of drunken immortal supreme's spiritual sense smiled and said, "It's been 80,000 years since the secret palace I left in the immortal world was touched and opened. It's really not easy. And you're the only one among the 3,600 people who have touched the barrier and guessed my identity. That's not easy at all. This venerable one gave me 3 chances to fuse with my soul. If you can answer one of my questions, I'll use it on you once. How about it? Soul fusion. Communicating with this venerable one in the God world?" Tan Xiu was startled inwardly and respectfully said, "Please ask away, senior." The wisp of drunken immortal supreme's spiritual sense smiled and asked, "What's the purpose of cultivating?" Tan Xiu didn't even think about it and directly replied, "It's to live." Drunken immortal supreme shook his head and said, "Your answer is ambiguous and nothing new." Tan Xiu said with a straight face, "I've thought about this question you asked countless times, but the answer I got is live. Only by living can one pursue the meaning of the great Tao and pursue the essence of life. Living is to add color to the life imprint, taste emotions, and comprehend the true essence. The longer one lives, the more experience one has, and the more gains one can get. The meaning of life is actually the process, not the result." A fluctuation suddenly came from the wisp of drunken immortal supreme's spiritual sense. After a while, a 5-colored light flashed in his eyes and firmly locked onto Tan Xiu. A light exclamation entered Tan Xiu's ears. "Your aura is a bit familiar, no?" Tan Xiu slightly furrowed his brows and couldn't help laughing. "You must be joking, senior drunken immortal. You're in existence from 80,000 years ago, while I'm a cultivator of the present age. We're not from the same era, nor are we in the same space. How can you feel that my aura is familiar? You must be mistaken." Drunken immortal supreme shook his head and said, "I can't be mistaken. I may not be able to recall this familiar aura if it's in the distant river of time. But the aura from 800 years ago appeared and disappeared very quickly. I'm quite good at it. Did you cross the tribulation to become a deity 800 years ago?" Tan Xiu's expression slightly changed and he looked at drunken immortal supreme with vigilance. He didn't expect that drunken immortal supreme, who was in the gods' realm, would notice him when he crossed the divine tribulation and was stained with the aura of the gods' realm. "Are you in the immortal exuviate pond, senior?" Drunken immortal supreme slightly nodded and lightly smiled. "That's right. Every newcomer who ascends to become a deity must guard the immortal exuviate pond for 100,000 years. But I've only been stationed here for 80,000 years. It's precisely because of this that I sensed your aura, yet you didn't ascend to the gods' realm. I met the wrong person and encountered a predestined tribulation at the critical moment," said Tan Xiu. "I had no choice but to recultivate." Drunken immortal supreme sighed. "It's a pity that only 2 people in the entire immortal world have ascended to become deities in the past 80,000 years. I thought that our world had a new member, but it turned out that he encountered a predestined tribulation. Promise me one thing and I'll teach you the mysteries of the world's cycle array, so that you won't be restricted by any restrictions in the secret palace I left behind." Tan Xiu's eyes lit up and he immediately cupped his fists. "Please tell me, senior drunken immortal." "Your realm is already high enough," said drunken immortal supreme. "You won't face any pressure in recultivating. As long as you don't get killed by powerhouses, it won't be a problem for you to become a deity again in the future. Therefore, my inheritance won't be of much significance to you. You still need to walk your own path. Promise me that you won't get my inheritance, but feel free to take away any treasures in the secret palace if you have the ability to do so. The return to the immortal world would be coming to an end at the end of this month, and the number 1 beauty on the list of returning beauties would be revealed tonight. Next, Quiet Night would begin writing the plot of the main characters on the Prestige public account according to the voting order of the brothers and sisters. If you want to continue reading the wonderful chapters of the Return to the Immortal World after the end of the book, please follow Quiet Night's WeChat public account as soon as possible. Quiet Night's WeChat public account is JYJS00, or directly search for Quiet Night's Thoughts in the WeChat subscription account. Chapter 1328. A smile outlined on the corner of Tan Xiu's mouth as he said, "Actually, I came here with such a plan in mind. You may be powerful, but your inheritance will not only be of no help to me, but it will also affect my own cultivation path. I promise you that." Drunken Immortal Supreme nodded with satisfaction. A torrent of knowledge flowed into Tan Xiu's mind, engraving the simple and unsophisticated array formation's profundity in Tan Xiu's mind. Almost in an instant, he looked at the world again. It was no longer an empty environment, but a revolving array pattern. "Thank you, Senior." Tan Xiu cupped his fists and said. Drunken Immortal Supreme shook his head and smiled. "This is also a part of your immortal fate. I'm looking forward to meeting you soon. I also hope you can treat my inheritor well. Our side is in a disadvantageous position. Only with a steady stream of fresh blood can we." A confused look appeared in Tan Xiu's eyes. When he found that the multicolored light in Drunken Immortal Supreme's eyes gradually faded away, he wanted to ask something. But as the real divine might dissipated, his doubts were finally suppressed at the bottom of his heart. He knew that Drunken Immortal Supreme had left. However, what did Drunken Immortal Supreme's last words mean? Our side is in a disadvantageous position. Was there also a battle in the God realm? Could it be that all the deities who ascended from the immortal world belonged to the same side? Tan Xiu, after all, had a prominent identity and knew a lot of things. Through the last words of Drunken Immortal Supreme, he finally determined that the God realm was not stable, and the battles there might be more brutal than in the immortal world. Becoming a deity. For the former Tan Xiu, it was close at hand. But for the current him, it was something very far away. Since it was far away, he decided to put it aside first. Buzz, the wisp of Drunken Immortal Supreme's spiritual sense shot a deep look at Tan Xiu and said with a smile, "Since little friend has obtained this lord's approval, this Drunken Immortal chessboard is useless to you. These are the 3 treasures inside the Drunken Immortal chessboard. One is the offensive 9th grade God Cleaving Saber, the other is the defensive 9th grade Immortal Divine Armor, and the last is the Primordial Chaos Dao Core. You can take them all, or you can choose one of them." Tan Xiu said without hesitation, "Take them all." Drunken Immortal Supreme's wisp of spiritual sense faintly smiled and said, "Since all of them have been taken, the barrier here is no longer of any use and my duty is over. Little friend, let's meet again in the God world." Specks of light floated out from Drunken Immortal Supreme's wisp of spiritual sense. As Tan Xiu put away all 3 items into his interspatial ring, the world in front of him changed and he returned to the jungle he was in before. Great harvest. The corners of Tan Xiu's mouth curved into a smile. Through the memories in his mind, he already knew the entire array structure of the secret palace. For example, the entire map had been installed in Tan Xiu's mind. He could clearly see where there were barriers, restrictions, dangerous places, safe places, suitable places to fight, suitable places to hide, a super cheating device. Tan Xiu's smile was particularly bright. Through his memories, he learned that there was a palace millions of miles away on the left, and there were a lot of precious ores inside. Immediately after, Tan Xiu informed Sablefiend Scorpio's group of 4 through the message token and then rushed there at an extremely fast speed. Knowing the route ahead and ignoring the internal dangers, Tan Xiu only needed to guard against immortal powerhouses. His speed increased several times and he was like a gust of wind as he hurried forward while searching for precious resources in the surroundings. Just 2 days later, Tan Xiu avoided more than a dozen traps arranged by other immortals and obtained a lot of cultivation resources without any mishap. Then, he appeared near a sparkling lake. At the bottom of the lake are violet coral agates with a total of 1,008 of them forming an immortal pearl protection array. Violet coral agates are very precious refining materials, but I'm sure there must be more valuable treasures inside the immortal pearl protection array. I can clearly see the violet coral agates, but I can't see what's inside the immortal pearl protection array. It'll be very dangerous if I go down to explore. That aquaproof golden eyes beast is very strong and can definitely be ranked among the top 10 immortal beasts in the secret palace. Unless my cultivation improves, I'll most likely lose my life if I go down there. Tan Xiu was unwilling, but he could only look at the lake and sigh. The total value of 1,008 violet coral agates was enough for him to buy 10 ninth-grade immortal artifacts. It would be a big loss if he were to give them up in vain. Suddenly, Tan Xiu's expression changed and his figure instantly disappeared. After a while, 4 figures slowly appeared. They were 4 people in black robes, 3 men and 1 woman. All of them were perfected golden immortals. Tan Xiu retracted his aura. When he observed the appearance of the 4 people, his complexion slightly changed because he recognized the identity of one of them. He was a disciple of Myriad Sword Sect. One of the people who besieged Dao Master Qing Feng in the periphery of the boundless mountain range was among them. Senior Brother Beijing, we've intercepted and killed dozens of people, but we didn't find anyone from pristine Immortal Confucianist Sect or Heavenly Ocean Immortal Domain. The inheritance secret palace left by Drunken Immortal Supreme was only open for 3 years. After 3 years, if no one can obtain the inheritance of Drunken Immortal Supreme, this place will be closed and it will take tens of thousands of years or even longer to reopen. We don't have much time. Junior Brother Beixiang, I understand what you said, but this secret palace is almost comparable to a large immortal domain. If we want to find the people of pristine Immortal Confucianist Sect and Heavenly Ocean Immortal Domain here, it's like looking for a needle in a haystack. So, we can only try our luck. If we're lucky, we'll meet them and kill them to vent our anger. If we don't, we can only go all out to snatch immortal artifacts, cultivation resources, and try our best to find the place of inheritance to snatch this immortal opportunity. If I meet Dao Master Qing Feng and those bastards, I'll definitely kill them all like I killed those unlucky bastards from Rosefinch Holy Sect. That's right, we're lucky to meet them. Killing them to vent our anger and snatching treasures is a double harvest. Tan Xiu watched the 4 people pass by and quickly disappear into the dense forest in the distance. Suddenly, the killing intent in his heart intensified. Those bastards from Myriad Sword Sect must have killed many people from Rosefinch Holy Sect. Since he met them here, he must not let them off easily. After Tan Xiu quickly followed them, his mind raced, hoping to find a good way to kill these 4 enemies from Myriad Sword Sect. Suddenly, Tan Xiu's footsteps instantly stopped. As a light flashed in his eyes, a brilliant idea suddenly emerged in his mind. In the next moment, his aura flickered, and his divine sense directly enveloped the 4 people. Although there was a lot of time and only a split second, the 4 people in front of him still discovered Tan Xiu. Reckless fool. The 4 people immediately returned and flashed toward Tan Xiu. Tan Xiu already had a plan in mind and didn't want to be entangled with the 4 people, so he quickly returned the way he came. When he appeared at the lakeside, he took out an immortal sword from his interspatial ring and vigilantly watched the 4 perfected golden immortals from Myriad Sword Sect. Except for that woman who's a mid-stage perfected golden immortal, the other 3 are early-stage perfected golden immortals. Given their strength, they should be on par with the golden-eyed aquaproof beast in the lake. I just need to lure them into the lake and then wake up the golden-eyed aquaproof beast, then I can do something myself. As he thought up to there, Tan Xiu immediately looked at the 4 people and shouted, "Where the hell did you 4 come from? Why are you chasing me?" Venerable Northpure sneered and lightly said, "You dared to release your divine sense in this secret palace and sneakily followed the 4 of us. That means you're harboring evil intentions and want to play with us. Tell me, what's your name?" If I'm satisfied with your answer, I may leave you with your immortal soul and give you a chance to reincarnate. Tan Xiu frowned deeply and angrily shouted, "You're not a good person at first glance. You actually want to kill me? Let me tell you, I'm a late-stage golden immortal. If you dare to join forces, I'll risk being discovered by many powerhouses in the immortal world and kill all of you." A contemptuous look flashed in Venerable Northpure's eyes. He exchanged glances with the other three and immediately sneered. "You're just a puny golden immortal, yet you dare to clamor with us four perfected golden immortals. You're really tired of living. What's the saying again? The ignorant are fearless. It seems that an ant-like little guy like you will die if you enter this place." With that said, he immediately unleashed his immortal sword and slammed it toward Tan Xiu. Tan Xiu deliberately showed a horrified look and jumped into the lake almost instantly. Then, he quickly dove down. He was able to sense that the four golden immortal realm experts behind him had caught up to him, and they seemed as if they swore to kill him. "You're courting death, so I'll fulfill your wish." Tan Xiu dove to a depth of 1 kilometer and suddenly stopped. He instantly unleashed his divine sword and fiercely swept it toward the four people. The sharp sword energy tore the water layer and turned into a kilometer-long sword beam that fiercely bombarded the four people. Bam, bam, bam. The four people were caught off guard and their bodies retreated backward. Never in their dreams did they expect that a puny golden immortal weakling would dare to brazenly attack four perfected golden immortals at the same time. What made them feel humiliated was that the strike came without warning. Although they tried their best to block it, their boiling blood made them realize that the strike just now had caused them minor injuries. "Kill him." The black-robed female perfected golden immortal unleashed a murderous aura that could almost materialize. Even though they were separated by the water layer, she still aggressively rushed toward Tan Xiu. Venerable Northpure also instantly caught up and said in a deep voice, "This brat is a bit strange. His aura shows that he's at most an earth immortal. But the power he unleashed is comparable to that of a perfected golden immortal. It seems that he must have an extraordinary divine weapon. Let's attack together and try to kill him as fast as possible." Understood. The four people attacked one after another, causing a vacuum to form 1 kilometer below. Chapter 1329. At the bottom of the 1,000-meter deep lake, Tan Xiu's eyes and ears were alert in all directions. Looking at the four perfected golden immortals rushing at him, he instantly released his surging aura and forced the lake water several meters around him away. He then instantly cast the 9th heaven thunder art. Boom, boom, lightning bolts fell from the sky and blasted into the deep lake. The lightning bolts were like electric fishes in the lake and instantly weaved the lake water into an electric net. The four perfected golden immortals who pounced at Tan Xiu had their complexions greatly changed. They could no longer continue to attack Tan Xiu and unleashed powerful attacks one after another to force the surrounding lake water away so that the electric currents wouldn't touch them. Retreat. Tan Xiu didn't want to continue fighting and retreated backward. At the same time, he sensed a terrifying aura quickly moving in another direction. He quickly converged his aura and took out the invisibility talisman again to hide his body. "Be careful, everyone." Venerable Northpure could only watch as Tan Xiu's figure disappeared into thin air. After sensing that Tan Xiu's aura was rapidly weakening, he immediately looked vigilant and shouted in a deep voice. The black-robed woman's expression suddenly changed and she said in a deep voice, "There's another powerhouse in this lake and he's approaching us at an extremely fast speed. Everyone, be careful. Even if it's a late-stage perfected golden immortal, it's impossible to keep us here if he wants to fight the four of us alone." In just a few breaths, the four of them had already seen the golden crystal aqua-proof beast in their line of sight. However, they didn't show the slightest fear despite the powerful aura emanating from the beast. Instead, their eyes were filled with greed as they stared fixedly at the top of the golden crystal aqua-proof beast's head. It was a crown. They couldn't tell what material the crown was made of, but they could recognize the 18 gorgeous and dazzling dragon balls inlaid on the crown. Each dragon ball was formed by condensing all the essence of a 5-colored divine dragon on the dragon core after the death of the 5-colored divine dragon. At the very front of the crown, there was a heart of the earth. The fist-sized heart of the earth was crimson, and it was filled with a dense life aura. Putting aside the fact that each 5-color dragon pearl was a priceless treasure, just the heart of the earth alone was a treasure that countless immortals dreamed of obtaining. Even honorable realm experts dreamed of obtaining one. Kill it and obtain the 5-color dragon pearl and the heart of the earth. The four of them looked at each other and shouted in a deep voice. Boom! The golden-eyed aqua-proof beast was the first to launch an attack. It opened its big mouth and a torrent of water sprayed out from its mouth. The torrent of water was like a cannonball, instantly attacking the four people. Gold divine shield. Quicksand net. Black gold immortal plate. 10,000 tenacity stone. Venerable Northpure's group of 4 released their defensive immortal artifacts at the same time, forming 4 defensive nets in front of them. Before figuring out the true strength of the golden-eyed aqua-proof beast, they chose to defend. Boom! The flood, which was dozens of meters in diameter, bombarded the 4 defensive immortal artifacts. Cracks kept appearing on the 4 defensive immortal artifacts before breaking apart. The flood bombarded the 4 of them. Puff! The 4 of them crazily spurted out blood and were sent flying upside down. One strike. All 4 of them suffered serious injuries. Although their injuries were not too serious, the terrifying attack of the golden-eyed aqua-proof beast still sent a chill down their spines and fear appeared in their eyes. Venerable Northpure's hands slightly trembled as he shouted, "This golden-eyed aqua-proof beast is very strong. Even if it can't be compared to a supremacy, it's at least a bit stronger than a late-stage perfected golden immortal. Even if the 4 of us join forces, we won't have any chance of winning against it." Venerable Northpure wiped the bloodstain on the corner of his mouth and asked aloud, "We can't get that crown if we can't fight it. Entering a treasure mountain and returning empty-handed, I think senior brothers and sisters will regret it in the future, no?" The black-robed woman said in a deep voice, "Quickly think of a way. Even if we can't kill it, we must get the crown on its head. I suspect that the crown is no longer an immortal artifact. It should be a primordial chaos treasure." A primordial chaos treasure. The other 3 were shaken and the greed in their eyes turned more intense. It must be noted that a 9th-grade immortal artifact was already a very terrifying immortal artifact. Even supremacy stage powerhouses might not necessarily have a 9th-grade immortal artifact. As for a primordial chaos treasure, it was a peerless treasure in the eyes of supremacies. If it's really a primordial chaos treasure and I can get it, my combat power will at least improve by several levels and I'll be able to kill a late-stage perfected golden immortal. Venerable Northpure's body trembled and he shouted fiercely, "If you don't have the will to go all out, how can you have the heart of a powerhouse? Everyone, let's throw caution to the wind. Kill!" The other 3 were all battle-hardened powerhouses with wild natures flowing deep in their bones. In front of such a precious treasure, they even forgot Tang Xiu's existence to the highest heavens. The golden-eyed aqua-proof beast was once an immortal beast raised by drunken immortal supreme. It had lived for tens of thousands of years, and after a long period of 80,000 years, its true age was already 120,000 years old. Therefore, its power was comparable to an early-stage supremacy stage powerhouse. Now, upon seeing 4 weaklings coming here and provoking it, its ferocious nature was immediately aroused. It opened its mouth and spat out bubbles, and its sharp claws instantly swept toward the 4 people. Wherever the sharp claws passed, the lake water was forced to the sides, and the bubbles flowed in the gaps between the claws. Pop! When the sharp claws swept toward the innate natal weapons of the 4 people, the bubbles suddenly burst. The explosion was full of destructive aura and instantly increased by thousands of times. Heavens! It's even stronger than before. Run! The 4 people crazily spurted out blood and their figures were like kites with broken strings, flying upside down for hundreds of meters. At this moment, all their defensive immortal weapons were shattered and destroyed. Suddenly, the black-robed woman's body trembled and a ribbon-like water instantly wrapped around her body. The huge suction force didn't allow her to resist and she was instantly pulled to the mouth of the golden-eyed aqua-proof beast. The 2 rows of crystal-like sharp teeth instantly bit the black-robed woman's body. Even her immortal soul couldn't escape and was directly swallowed by the golden-eyed aquaproof beast. At the same time, Venerable Baixiang's body was also pulled to the front of the golden-eyed aquaproof beast. His face was full of fear as he watched the black-robed woman being bitten and killed in an instant. Despair occupied his entire mind. He's dead. Venerable Baixiang painfully closed his eyes and roared, "Senior brothers, help me take care of my family." Boom, the golden-eyed aquaproof beast had just swallowed Venerable Baixiang. It didn't even have the time to bite this immortal to death when Venerable Baixiang's immortal soul self-detonated and howled in pain. Most of its sharp teeth were blown off and the inside of its mouth was blown up. The huge impact caused it to suffer heavy injuries despite being powerful enough. Whoosh, a hazy figure silently appeared above the golden-eyed aquaproof beast. Without Venerable Baixiang's self-detonation, the golden-eyed aquaproof beast could have easily detected the other party. However, it was suffering from the pain of the explosion and fainted, so it couldn't detect anything around it. Puff, the divine sword pierced its head and the crown on its head was instantly cut off. Then, Tan Xiu appeared out of thin air and grabbed it. Afterward, Tan Xiu exerted all his strength to crazily circulate his primal chaos force and dashed into the distance lightning fast. Junior sister Zhu Rong. Junior brother Baixiang. Venerable North Pure and the other perfected golden immortal looked pained at the same time. They roared and gritted their teeth as they crazily rushed toward the golden-eyed aquaproof beast. However, when the figure that appeared out of thin air appeared in their line of sight, the 2 of them crazily coughed up a mouthful of blood. Damn bastard! Give me back that primordial chaos treasure. The 2 of them didn't take advantage of the temporary fainting of the golden-eyed aquaproof beast to attack it. Instead, they tried to chase after Tan Xiu. What were they fighting so desperately for? It was all for that primordial chaos treasure. 9th Heavenly Thunder Art. The moment Tan Xiu retreated, he cast the spell without hesitation. Countless thunderbolts struck down from the sky above the lake, causing the bottom of the lake to turn upside down. Roar, the golden-eyed aquaproof beast, who was attacked by the thunderbolts, suddenly woke up from its fainting state. Having suffered a heavy blow, its bloodshot eyes flickered with a crazy killing intent. Noticing the 2 enemies who had just passed by it, it immediately roared and chased after them. Venerable North Pure and the other perfected golden immortal were scared out of their wits at the same time. The thunderbolts made them somewhat helpless. Who would have thought that the fainted golden-eyed aquaproof beast would wake up at this time? Run! Run away! Venerable North Pure no longer cared about chasing Tan Xiu, nor did he care about the crown. His figure was like a cannonball, rushing upward while being bombarded by dozens of thunderbolts. Arg! The other perfected golden immortal couldn't avoid it and was hit by the sharp claws of the golden-eyed aquaproof beast. He screamed and was swallowed by the beast. However, seeing that he couldn't survive, he also chose to detonate his immortal soul in an instant. The golden-eyed aquaproof beast had just been seriously injured. Although it barely survived, it couldn't withstand the second explosion of a perfected golden immortal's immortal soul. As its bestial soul collapsed, its head was blasted into pieces. Venerable North Pure was too close to the explosion of the perfected golden immortal. The aftermath of the explosion made him feel like he was struck by lightning. Tears and snot gushed out of his eyes and nose due to the pain, and blood spurted out of his mouth in big mouthfuls. By the time he escaped from the bottom of the lake, he was already on the verge of death. Buzz, a sword light that seemed to be able to tear through space slashed down at Venerable North Pure, catching him off guard. In almost an instant, Venerable North Pure was split into 2 halves, and even his immortal soul couldn't escape. So easy. Never once did Tang Xiu expect that a dignified perfected golden immortal would be so easily killed by him with a single slash. One must know that he didn't even have the time to use his Devour Divine ability and Fusion Divine ability. Chapter 1330. Tan Xiu's eyes flickered with excitement. He had already put the crown into his interspatial ring. He didn't have the time to check what grade of treasure the crown was and rushed into the water again. Looking at the carcass of the golden crystal beast, he put its carcass into his interspatial ring and rushed to the pearl immortal protective array at the bottom of the lake. In the time it took for half an incense stick to burn, he broke the array and put away the 1008 purple agates. Then, he grabbed the 7-colored pearl on top of a 10,000-year-old cold jade. The 7-colored dragon pearl? Tan Xiu's eyes lit up. The 7-colored dragon pearl, formed by the essence of the 7-colored divine dragon, was definitely a peerless treasure in the eyes of the Supremes. If one could absorb the 7-colored dragon pearl, any early-stage Supremes would be able to break through to the late-stage Supremes in a short time. They would have the chance to break through the deity's tribulation and become an immortal. At this very moment, the 7-colored dragon pearl that Tan Xiu had obtained was simply tailor-made for him. If he absorbed it, his cultivation speed would greatly increase, and it would be several times faster than usual. Absorb. Tan Xiu performed a series of hand seals to absorb the 7-colored dragon pearl. An indescribable feeling instantly enveloped his heart. Divine power. Rainbow phantasmagoria. Tan Xiu's expression gradually became strange. Never in his wildest dreams would he have thought that he would be able to awaken an innate ability just from absorbing a 7-colored dragon pearl. What was most unbelievable to him was that this rainbow phantasmagoria had greatly increased his mastery of illusions. He could even use the rainbow phantasmagoria to outline a world and use this world to confuse his enemies, making them reveal their deepest secrets to him. Incredible. This is incredible. Tan Xiu could conclude that the rainbow phantasmagoria was definitely more terrifying than the devour and fusion divine powers. If he was fighting a strong enemy and used the rainbow phantasmagoria when the enemy was caught off guard, he would definitely be able to make the enemy lose focus. More importantly, he could also confuse the enemy and find out their weaknesses. Suddenly, Tan Xiu's expression changed, and in the blink of an eye, he appeared in a narrow muddy ditch, and instantly set up a concealment array disc, and then restrained his aura. A moment later, 2 figures appeared at the place where Tan Xiu had just been. They used their divine senses to scan the surroundings, but they didn't detect any abnormalities in the surroundings. They frowned at the same time. It's obvious that a battle took place here, and the traces were not erased. If my guess is correct, they must have sensed our arrival, given up on the idea of fighting and left. Yes, and it's a battle between perfected golden immortals. It's a pity that we appeared too early. Otherwise, we could have waited until both sides were badly injured before appearing. We could have definitely killed them all and reaped the benefits. Let's go. After exchanging a few words, the 2 of them left. Time flew by. After a full 2 days, Tan Xiu quietly removed the concealment formation and left the bottom of the lake with the invisibility talisman. When he appeared on the shore and found that no one was hiding around, he hurried to the nearest palace. Many people entered the secret palace, but the space inside the secret palace was too big. At first, Tan Xiu encountered a lot of golden immortals and perfected golden immortals. But a few days later, he only met 2 golden immortals after traveling for millions of miles. Heaven Razor Palace. A towering palace in the secret palace was shrouded by an array, and only a long bridge could lead to the palace. However, after a few days, the dozens of golden immortals and perfected golden immortals who discovered the palace failed to cross the long bridge. They were either killed by the restrictions and traps on the bridge, or they were forced to retreat after sustaining heavy injuries. Thousands of miles away from the palace, Sable-Fiend Scorpio trembled all over and spurted out a mouthful of dark green blood. The black robe on her body was already in tatters, and the horrifying wound on her body was bleeding profusely. His grayish-white bones could be seen clearly from the wounds on his body. Hand over the obsidian pot. Maybe we can keep your remnant soul and let you reincarnate as a scorpion. But if you continue to resist, don't blame us for destroying your soul and making you unable to reincarnate forever, said a handsome man in a golden battle robe with a strange smile. Next to him were 2 sturdy iron tower-like men who looked almost identical. They were about 4 meters tall and had dark skin that exuded a glossy luster. They also had an extra eye on their glabella. They were members of the Three-Eyed Iron True clan, which was very rare in the immortal world. Sable-Fiend Scorpio felt a bit desperate. She was a late-stage perfected golden immortal, and it was reasonable to say that there was almost no one in this secret palace who could kill her. But the three opponents were all late-stage perfected golden immortals. Most importantly, White Spark True Monarch had a 9th grade skyscraping all. White Spark True Monarch, you have to think it through. Even if the three of you join forces to kill me, I can at least drag one of you to die with me. The other two won't feel any better. Besides, there are at least dozens of powerhouses eyeing us covetously in the vicinity. We'll only end up benefiting others in the end, said Sable-Fiend Scorpio coldly. Do you think this monarch is scared? White Spark True Monarch sneered. You want to drag us down with you? You want us to pay a painful price? You're already at the end of your strength and the three of us don't even need to go all out to kill you. Cut the crap and hand over the obsidian pot, else you'll really have your soul scattered. Sable-Fiend Scorpio took a deep breath, looked around and shouted, who dares to stand up now? Whose treasure is this obsidian pot? White Spark True Monarch snorted, whereas the two Three-Eyed Iron True clan experts also looked disdainful. At this moment, who would dare to stand up against the three late-stage perfected golden immortals? Sure enough. None of the dozens of perfected golden immortals hiding in the surroundings came forward. It wasn't that they didn't want the obsidian pot, but they didn't have the confidence to kill White Spark True Monarch's trio if they helped Sable-Fiend Scorpio. Most importantly, the enemies were not limited to White Spark True Monarch's trio. There were many faintly discernible auras in the surroundings. When she and White Spark True Monarch were mutually wounded, they would surely kill them and snatch the treasure. Deep unwillingness emerged in Sable-Fiend Scorpio's heart. She looked forward to her master Tan Xiu's arrival, but she was also well aware that even if her master Tan Xiu arrived, he wouldn't be able to save her. Even if her master Tan Xiu could kill a perfected golden immortal with a sneak attack, it was impossible for him to fight against three late-stage perfected golden immortals. Even with his help, it was very likely that one more person would die in the end. Or maybe, facing such a situation, even if he's already here, the chances of him coming out to help me are slim, no? After all, it's a dead end. Sable-Fiend Scorpio took a deep breath and unleashed a blood-red saber from her body. Her eyes were filled with madness. It was a very high-grade Magus artifact that was comparable to an 8th-grade immortal artifact. She hadn't unleashed it before because she didn't want others to know that she had a high-grade Magus artifact to prevent others from coveting her treasure and killing her. But now, she couldn't care less anymore. Come on. Let's see which one of you will be buried with me, shouted Sable-Fiend Scorpio. A Magus artifact. When Sable-Fiend Scorpio unleashed the Magus artifact, be it White Spark True Monarch, his two subordinates, or the dozens of powerhouses nearby, all of them could feel the shaman power emanating from the Magus artifact. Some knowledgeable people even recognized the Magus artifact. It was once a divine weapon of the Diablo Precantator clan, a famous race in the immortal world. Interesting. A cold figure shot from a distance. He exuded a surging aura and said in a deep voice, Sable-Fiend Scorpio has disappeared for hundreds of years. I didn't expect to see you here. Furthermore, you even have a Magus artifact once used by the Diablo Precantator War General. Venerable Netherworld, do you also want to fight me? Retorted Sable-Fiend Scorpio with a murderous aura. You're very strong, so I'm naturally not your match. Venerable Netherworld shook his head and smilingly said. Of course, those three are also powerhouses and I'm not their match either. But I'm curious. You were still a mid-level perfected golden immortal several hundred years ago, so how did you break through to the late level so quickly? If you can answer my question, it's not impossible for me to fight alongside you. Sable-Fiend Scorpio's expression shifted and she shot a deep look at Venerable Netherworld. She knew that the Venerable was right. Let alone several hundred years ago, she was just a mid-level perfected golden immortal a few days ago. But after coming to the secret palace, her luck could be said to be heaven-defying and she was directly teleported to a swamp by the teleportation array there. Most importantly, there was a heavenly god fruit tree growing in the swamp, and there happened to be 2 ripe heavenly god fruits on the tree. After taking one heavenly god fruit, her cultivation rapidly increased and she smoothly broke through to the late-level perfected golden immortal in just a few days. Naturally, it's a fortuitous encounter. Venerable Netherworld's eyes narrowed. Upon hearing Sable-Fiend Scorpio's words, a wry smile appeared on his face and he sighed. I originally wanted to wait for both of you to suffer and then snatch the obsidian pot. But I didn't expect you to reveal the Diablo Precantator clan's weapon. It seems I can only act in advance. Sable-Fiend Scorpio, you can see the current situation clearly. You'll have almost 0 chance of winning if you fight them alone. Therefore, we can only fight side by side to have a chance of winning. Why are you helping me? Asked Sable-Fiend Scorpio with a frown. Because I also have a witchcraft artifact, said Venerable Netherworld lightly. I don't know if the fortuitous encounter you mentioned is just my guess. But ever since the Diablo Precantator clan disappeared in the immortal world, only a few witchcraft artifacts of their clan have been passed down. Almost everyone who has a witchcraft artifact has obtained their inheritance. Chapter 1331. Sable-Fiend Scorpio instantly understood Venerable Netherworld's meaning. He probably misunderstood that she had obtained the inheritance of the Diablo Precantator clan, so the 2 of them could be considered to have some fate with the same lineage. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that they were half from the same sect. Whitespark True Monarch, who was standing a kilometer away, immediately looked angry upon hearing Venerable Netherworld's words and roared loudly, Are you sure you want to intervene in our matter, Venerable Netherworld? I'll tell you this, I'll definitely kill you here today if you don't retreat quickly. Countless people have threatened me, but none of them were able to realize their big words, said Venerable Netherworld coldly. I've heard that Whitespark True Monarch is very powerful, so I'd like to exchange pointers with you today. Is it you who's more powerful, or is it me who can jump a level and beat you? Kill. Whitespark True Monarch could see that Venerable Netherworld really wanted to poke his nose into other people's business today, so he understood that wasting his breath would only give Sable-Fiend Scorpio more time to recuperate. His figure flickered lightning fast and instantly dashed toward the duo. He unleashed his innate natal immortal sword and fiercely attacked the duo. The 2 three-eyed Iron True clan twins cooperated with each other to form a duo-killing array. As they brandished their spears, layers of spear shadows turned into meteors that instantly passed through Whitespark True Monarch's body and attacked Sable-Fiend Scorpio and Venerable Netherworld. Skynet. A big golden net instantly blocked in front of Venerable Netherworld and Sable-Fiend Scorpio. As the duo violently retreated, layers of overlapping blade shadows covered the space in front of them. Nearly at the moment when the blade shadows slashed toward Whitespark True Monarch, the big net began to change in various forms. It was the first time they cooperated. Venerable Netherworld and Sable-Fiend Scorpio cooperated very well with each other. Their experience in fighting and killing, coupled with the fact that one of them defended and the other attacked, they were able to completely resolve the attacks of the 3 perfected golden immortals. We're not their match. Let's find a way to escape. Venerable Netherworld sent a voice transmission to Sable-Fiend Scorpio. Indeed, replied Sable-Fiend Scorpio. If I'm not injured, I'll have a chance to win as long as you can hold one of them. But I'm heavily injured and can't unleash 80% of my strength, so it's too difficult to defeat them. This is the secret palace, and I'm not familiar with the surroundings, so I can't make an escape plan. Venerable Netherworld's mind was racing. He had sent a message to 9 Nether Swordmeister a few days ago and learned that it would take him at least half a month to meet up with him. Therefore, he could only think of a way to resolve the crisis before him. Let's put on a bluff first and risk it all. Venerable Netherworld pondered for a while and finally transmitted his voice. How? Asked Sable-Fiend Scorpio. I'll put away the Skynet later, and then we'll unleash our strongest attacks at the same time, said Venerable Netherworld. Even if we can't severely injure them, we can still catch them off guard and make them immediately defend and retreat. Let's take advantage of this opportunity to run towards the back. Now that the secret palace is full of dangers, even if they are powerful, they will need to think carefully before they want to hunt us down. I'm betting that they'll chase us for at most 1,000,000 miles before giving up. All right. Sable Fiend Scorpio immediately replied. In an instant, she and Venerable Netherworld went all out and unleashed their strongest killer moves. As their innate immortal weapons turned into a sea of attacks, White Spark True Monarch's trio's complexion slightly changed. Buzz. At this moment, the trio suddenly felt their vision blur, causing their eyes to widen as though they saw the most incredible thing in the world. That was, the person they missed the most and the most beautiful scene. Puff! 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 In just a flash, White Spark True Monarch broke free from the illusion. When he realized that the terrifying attacks were already in front of him, it was too difficult for him to dodge them. Therefore, an immortal weapon appeared in his hand out of thin air and he instantly raised his arm. Aarg, the immortal weapon on his arm was directly cut off along with his arm. The two three-eyed Iron True Clan's twin brothers, on the other hand, were not as strong as White Spark True Monarch in terms of willpower. They didn't notice the attacks until they were already in front of them and were directly slain by their innate immortal weapons. God damn it! White Spark True Monarch was furious. He endured the intense pain and instantly flew backward. He put away the two three-eyed Iron True Clan's immortal souls and then turned around to flee into the distance. What's going on? Sable Fiend Scorpio and Venerable Netherworld were caught unprepared by the sudden change. They looked at each other in dismay, watching White Spark True Monarchs fleeing back and the two three-eyed Iron True Clan's corpses. They were shocked, speechless for a while. What? Since when did my attacks become so powerful? Since when was it possible to directly kill a late-stage perfected Golden Immortal? The tens of Golden Immortal realm experts in the surroundings were secretly paying attention to the battle. However, such a sudden change in events was something they'd never imagined even in their dreams. For a moment, they didn't know how to accept it. Whoosh, Tan Xiu's figure flashed and appeared in front of them in just a few breaths. With a calm expression on his handsome face, he found the two interspatial rings from the corpses of the three-eyed Iron True Clan's experts and put them into his own ring. Then, he cupped his fists and smilingly said, "We meet again, Venerable Netherworld." Venerable Netherworld looked at Tan Xiu with a strange expression and nodded. I really didn't expect to meet Great Tang Heavenly Emperor here. It's fate that brought us here to meet, said Tan Xiu with a faint smile. I have to thank Venerable Netherworld for drawing your sword to help. Drawing your sword to help? Venerable Netherworld stared blankly for a moment. Master. Upon seeing Tan Xiu, Sable Fiend Scorpio instantly realized that White Spark True Monarch's group of three was definitely related to her master, the Great Tang Heavenly Emperor. However, such a guess was just a guess, and the outcome still scared her. After all, in her eyes, Tan Xiu was probably inferior to a perfected Golden Immortal. He had once killed an early-stage perfected Golden Immortal, but it was only because of a sneak attack that he won. Tan Xiu let out a faint smile and glanced at her covered face. Then, he said, "Fortunately, I arrived in time, else it wouldn't have been so easy for you to get out of danger." Master? Venerable Netherworld looked incredulous. His eyes were as big as a bell as he kept looking at Tan Xiu and Sable Fiend Scorpio. Never once did he expect that a dignified perfected Golden Immortal like Sable Fiend Scorpio would call this weak Great Tang Heavenly Emperor as master. What kind of situation was this? In the surroundings, the dozens of perfected Golden Immortals hiding in the dark also looked incredulous. They didn't sense Tan Xiu's powerful aura, and they could even faintly perceive that this mysterious young man called Master by Sable Fiend Scorpio should have just gone through the immortal tribulation not long ago, right? Even if he cultivated some kind of divine ability or secret technique, he could only be comparable to an Earth Immortal at most. So how could he become the master of a perfected Golden Immortal like Sable Fiend Scorpio? What's his origin? Even a dignified perfected Golden Immortal like Sable Fiend Scorpio submitted to him? You know, a supremacy stage powerhouse tried to subdue Sable Fiend Scorpio thousands of years ago, but he failed. When did such a guy appear in the immortal world? What kind of ability does he have to make Sable Fiend Scorpio call him master? Is he a disciple of some great force? But even if he is, he's not qualified to make Sable-Fiend Scorpio submit if he's too weak, no? What's going on here? There's definitely something fishy going on. I don't think this mysterious young man is simple. Could it be that the reason why Sable-Fiend Scorpio and Venerable Netherworld could easily defeat Whitespark True Monarch's group of 3 is related to this mysterious young man? Who exactly is he? Tan Xiu didn't hear the private discussions of the dozens of perfected golden immortals around him, let alone knowing what they were thinking. Looking at Venerable Netherworld's dull face, Tan Xiu lightly smiled and said, "Venerable Netherworld, this isn't a good place to reminisce about the past. Why don't we leave this place first and then have a few drinks?" Venerable Netherworld was on guard against Tan Xiu. After hesitating for a while, he slowly nodded and said, "That's exactly what I'm thinking. Please. Please." Tan Xiu let out a faint smile and turned to fly away with Sable-Fiend Scorpio. The dozens of perfected golden immortals in the surroundings didn't stop the trio's departure. Although they wanted to snatch the treasures in Sable-Fiend Scorpio's hands, 2 of Whitespark True Monarch's group of 3 had died and 1 had fled. They didn't have the ability to stop Sable-Fiend Scorpio, Venerable Netherworld, and the mysterious young man. 1,000,000 kilometers away. When Tan Xiu took Sable-Fiend Scorpio and Venerable Netherworld and landed in a mountain canyon, Tan Xiu used his spiritual sense to observe the surroundings. After finding that there was no one else within hundreds of kilometers, he quickly arranged a soundproof array and smilingly said, "Please, Venerable Netherworld." Venerable Netherworld shot a deep look at Tan Xiu and then glanced at Sable-Fiend Scorpio, who was standing respectfully beside Tan Xiu, from the corner of his eyes. Then, he sat cross-legged on a large blue stone. Tan Xiu took out some immortal wine and poured 2 cups. He handed 1 cup to Venerable Netherworld and then raised his cup and smilingly said, "Thank you for your help, Venerable Netherworld. Otherwise, this subordinate of mine would have died in the Yellow Springs today." Venerable Netherworld didn't rush to drink the wine in his cup and instead stared at Tan Xiu and asked, "I need you to answer a question for me. If you want to ask why those 3 perfected golden immortals suddenly forgot to resist, then save your golden mouth," said Tan Xiu with a faint smile. "What I can tell you is that I did it, but how I did it is my secret. I won't ask about it since it's your secret." Venerable Netherworld forced a wry smile. "Great Tang Heavenly Emperor, I and Sable-Fiend Scorpio may have some relationship, so I wonder if she can answer a question of mine. That top-notch shaman artifact was given to me by someone," said Sable-Fiend Scorpio. "If you want to ask me if I got the inheritance of the Diablo Precantator clan, then I can tell you that I didn't get it. Starting from today, I'll resume the triple eruption. Seeking monthly votes and recommendation votes _. Chapter 1332. Venerable Netherworld looked a bit disappointed after hearing Sable-Fiend Scorpio's words. He shook his head and forced a wry smile. "It seems I was wrong. You may have misunderstood me as the successor disciple of the Diablo Precantator clan, but I still want to thank you," said Sable-Fiend Scorpio. "If it wasn't for you, Venerable Netherworld, I'm afraid my chances of surviving would have been very small. I can't thank you enough for your kindness. If you need my help in the future, I'll do my best to help you as long as Master allows it." Venerable Netherworld slightly nodded and sighed. "I didn't expect to get a favor from a late-stage perfected golden immortal due to a misjudgment. It's worth it. But I'm curious about how you..." Sable-Fiend Scorpio glanced at Tan Xiu and lowered her head in silence. She didn't answer his question. "Venerable Netherworld's curiosity is much heavier than I thought," said Tan Xiu with a faint smile. "Alright, let me answer this question for you. Sable-Fiend Scorpio was once trapped in the convict arena and I bought her at a high price. Hence, she followed me and worked for me." "The convict arena?" With a strange expression, Venerable Netherworld asked, "Was Sable-Fiend Scorpio among the people you sent to kill 9 Netherswordmeister's friend?" "No, I didn't." Tan Xiu shook his head. "You didn't?" Venerable Netherworld stared blankly and immediately asked in surprise, "Great Tang Heavenly Emperor, how many perfected golden immortals did you buy from the convict arena?" Tan Xiu deliberately raised his hand and counted his fingers. Then, he smilingly said, "Not many, actually. About a dozen." "What's wrong? Venerable Netherworld wants me to give you a few?" "No, no, no." Venerable Netherworld gulped down a mouthful of saliva and looked incredulous. Never once did he expect that Tan Xiu would have the courage and financial resources to buy so many perfected golden immortals from the convict arena. Given the number of powerhouses under his control, perhaps even a second-rate sect in the immortal world wouldn't be much stronger than him, right? The great Tang Heavenly Emperor's wealth is comparable to a nation's. It's really enviable. Having said that, he directly drank the wine in his cup, got up and said, "I came to this secret palace to get some treasures. Sable Fiend Scorpio is safe and sound, so I'll take my leave." Tan Xiu nodded with a smile and watched Venerable Netherworld leave. Then, he slowly turned to Sable Fiend Scorpio and asked, "What's the origin of those three who besieged you before?" "They're from the Cloud Cauldron sect," said Sable Fiend Scorpio. "Cloud Tripod sect?" Tan Xiu said in surprise. "The Cloud Cauldron sect is in the Heavenly Cloud Immortal Domain, which is at least 100 immortal domains away from here. It's a desolate place in the immortal world. I didn't expect to meet 3 perfected golden immortals from the Cloud Cauldron sect here. As far as I know, the Cloud Cauldron sect had a total of 4 perfected golden immortals hundreds of years ago," said Sable Fiend Scorpio. "Aside from Whitespark True Monarch and the 2 three-eyed Iron Clan powerhouses, there's only Sect Master Whitewing True Monarch left. We may have to guard against the retaliation of those disciples from the major sects if we encountered them." Tan Xiu nodded. "But this Cloud Cauldron sect isn't worth worrying about. Anyway, how did you get into a conflict with those 3 people from the Cloud Cauldron sect?" Sable Fiend Scorpio took out the obsidian pot and handed it to Tan Xiu. "Master, this is a treasure I got from a dangerous place millions of miles away. When I was collecting this obsidian pot, those 3 people from the Cloud Cauldron sect happened to find me and then chased me to the palace." "The obsidian pot?" A surprised look appeared on Tang Xiu's face. After receiving it, he quietly observed it for a while and then nodded. "This obsidian pot is a 9th-grade immortal artifact that Supreme Obsidian traveled across most of the immortal world tens of thousands of years ago. He collected a lot of precious materials and spent more than 500 years to refine it. However, its only effect is to suppress immortal souls." Having said that, a scroll appeared in Tan Xiu's hand out of thin air. He threw it to Sable Fiend Scorpio and said, "You may be my subordinate, but I won't take what you got for free. This is the Taibai Myriad Beast Scripture, which is suitable for cultivators of exotic beasts like you." "The Taibai Myriad Beast Scripture?" Sable Fiend Scorpio looked ecstatic and quickly opened the Taibai Myriad Beast Scripture. Simple and unadorned characters flowed into her eyes like flowing water. In just a quarter of an hour, she gratefully knelt in front of Tan Xiu and said, "Thank you for the reward, Master. With this Taibai Myriad Beast Scripture, I'll have some assurance to break through to the supremacy stage in the future. If you can break through to the supremacy stage soon, you'll be a great help to me in the future." Tan Xiu faintly smiled. "Cultivate well. I'll provide you with the resources you need. If you perform well, I can also teach you various divine abilities and secret arts in the future." "Understood. This subordinate will do her best to serve you, Master," said Sable Fiend Scorpio excitedly. In the past, she only thought that Tan Xiu was a mysterious rich man. The reason why she was loyal to him was that her life was in his hands. She almost had no respect for him at all. But now, she found that her master was even more mysterious and terrifying. Also, previously, when he and Venerable Netherworld worked together to kill the enemies, his master must have used some kind of secret technique that allowed the 2 of them to easily kill the 2 enemies. Even Whitespark True Monarch was heavily injured and had to flee in panic. Sable Fiend Scorpio realized that her master, whom she once despised, not only had huge wealth, but his strength was also very shocking. The reason why he had been acting weak was probably because he was hiding his strength. Further, he should have many other things, any of which could cause a big sensation if he were to take them out. It must be noted that the Tai-Bai myriad beast scripture was an inherited cultivation technique of the Tai-Bai sect in the Tai-Bai immortal domain. She couldn't figure out why this master in front of her would have the top cultivation technique of the Tai-Bai sect. However, she was sure that this master of hers was even more mysterious and powerful than she had imagined. Let's take all the treasures in the palace first since we've gathered together. Tan Xiu waved his hand and said, let's take away all the treasures in the palace first. We'll search for star tears after we're done with this place. I may have been chased to that palace, master, said Sablefiend Scorpio respectfully. But I also found out some things. Many people have found that palace in the past few days, but no one has been able to enter it smoothly. Many golden immortals and perfected golden immortals were either killed by the restrictions and traps on the bridge leading to the palace or were forced to retreat after suffering heavy injuries. I think that for the sake of safety, we should wait until someone breaks the restrictions and mechanisms of that palace. It won't be too late for us to enter then. How about we make a bet? Tan Xiu lightly smiled. Sablefiend Scorpio stared blankly for a moment and then hurriedly said, this subordinate dares not. Don't worry. I won't blame you. Tan Xiu chuckled. I can tell you that it's absolutely as easy as entering my own back garden if I want to enter that palace. Do you believe me? Sablefiend Scorpio shot a strange look at Tan Xiu and slowly shook her head. I don't believe you. Since you don't believe me, then let's make a bet, said Tan Xiu. Let's bet, 1 immortal crystal. Sablefiend Scorpio thought for a while and nodded. If it's really like what Master said, that you can enter that palace as if entering your own back garden, then I'll naturally concede defeat when the time comes. Alright, let's go. With a smile on his face, Tan Xiu removed the soundproof array and flew toward the palace with Sablefiend Scorpio. More than 1,000 kilometers away from the palace, Tan Xiu found some immortals hiding in the dark. However, he didn't alarm them and chose to take a detour to approach the palace. 200 kilometers. When Tan Xiu and Sablefiend Scorpio were only 200 kilometers away from the palace, Tan Xiu stopped and slightly furrowed his brows. The closer he got to the palace, the denser the immortals hiding in the dark were. Even if he wanted to take a detour, he couldn't. It seems I can only change my appearance. Tan Xiu sighed inwardly. His facial muscles changed and he quickly changed into another appearance. He then saw that Sablefiend Scorpio also changed her appearance. Therefore, Tan Xiu took her and swaggered toward the front of the palace. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, he and Sablefiend Scorpio stepped on the tens of thousands of meters long bridge. Look at where I'm going to land and follow me closely. Remember, don't go the wrong way, else you'll be attacked by the restrictions and traps here, said Tan Xiu with a voice transmission. Understood. Sablefiend Scorpio's eyes revealed a strange look, but she didn't question him. She wanted to see if this mysterious master of hers really had the ability to enter. Or was he just spouting nonsense? They kept moving forward. The duo encountered more than a dozen immortals who were cautiously walking on the long bridge as though they were treading on thin ice. When the duo was halfway there, they saw a golden immortal stage powerhouse being blasted away by a lightning restriction and heavily smashing into both sides of the bridge. Almost in an instant, only a mournful scream was heard as the man was obliterated by a large number of restrictions on both sides. Huh! Suddenly, Tan Xiu's eyes turned cold because he found a familiar face 100 meters in front of him. He deeply remembered that this golden immortal stage powerhouse was in the residence of the Inner Pill sect back in the Boundless City. He was a disciple of the Inner Pill sect. At this time, although the golden immortal stage powerhouse noticed that someone was coming behind him, he didn't want to pay attention to it at all. He was more concerned about the restrictions and traps in the surroundings. Along the way, he had calculated every step with great precision, constantly comprehending the profundities of the restrictions on the bridge and searching for the locations of those traps. 7 days. I'll be able to cross this bridge and enter the palace in 7 days at most. I believe there must be a lot of treasures in the palace. Maybe the inheritance left by drunken Immortal Supreme is in this palace. The golden immortal of the inner pill sect thought happily after breaking another restriction. Chapter 1333. Sable Fiend Scorpio, kill that guy in front later. Remember, don't expose the weapons you've used before, lest those hidden powerhouses nearby discover your true identity. Tan Xiu secretly transmitted his voice to her. Understood, replied Sable Fiend Scorpio. She glared at the golden immortal in front and suddenly revealed a bit of killing intent. Just as the two of them were less than 10 meters away from the golden immortal, Sable Fiend Scorpio flicked an immortal crystal from her fingers and released her immortal force to directly bombard the golden immortal's back. Nearly in an instant, the golden immortal's complexion greatly changed and fear climbed up his face as his body flew out of the bridge. Aarg! After a shrill scream, the golden immortal was directly bombarded and killed by the terrifying restriction outside the bridge. How much do you know about the Inner Pill sect and the Everlasting Palace, Sable Fiend Scorpio? Tan Xiu coldly transmitted his voice. Or the Myriad Sword sect and the 100 Poison sect? Sable Fiend Scorpio's expression shifted and she replied, I know a bit about the Everlasting Palace and the 100 Poison sect. As for the Inner Pill sect and the Myriad Sword sect, I don't know much about them. I only know some perfected golden immortals from these two sections. That's enough. Tan Xiu nodded and transmitted his voice again. Remember my words. If you encounter the people from the Inner Pill sect, the Everlasting Palace, the Myriad Sword sect, and the 100 Poison sect in the future, go all out and kill them without exposing your identity. These 4 sects are our enemies from today onward. Hiss. Despite Sable Fiend Scorpio's cold-blooded nature, she couldn't help but gasp upon hearing Tan Xiu's words. Among these 4 sects, the Inner Pill sect and the Everlasting Palace were top-notch sects in the immortal world, while the Myriad Sword sect and the 100 Poison sect were second-rate sections. Having so many enemies all of a sudden made Sable Fiend Scorpio's heart turn cold. Pressure brings motivation, said Tan Xiu indifferently. Only by stepping on the corpses of our enemies can we live longer, go further, and become stronger. Of course, we don't want to fight them alone. If we encounter enemies from these 4 sects, they will be our own people. With the situation of these 4 sects in the immortal world, I'm afraid they have many enemies, right? Yes. As far as I know, their biggest enemy is the Rosefinch Holy Sect and 4 sacred palaces. Sable Fiend Scorpio transmitted her voice. For Saint's Palace. Ever since Tan Xiu returned to the immortal world, he had heard the name of this sect many times. What puzzled him the most was that the 4 holy prefectures seemed to have appeared out of thin air. He had never heard of this name before, but now many experts of this sect had appeared to be enemies with the Inner Pill sect and the Everlasting Palace. If it weren't for the existence of this sect, the Rosefinch Holy Sect would be in a much worse state than it was now. Where did the 4 saints' mansion come from? Tan Xiu frowned and asked in a low voice as he walked forward. I don't know about its specific origin either, said Sable Fiend Scorpio. However, more than 600 years ago, I met people from the 4 saints' palace. At that time, they were fighting with the Myriad Sword sect's experts and the scene was particularly tragic. According to what I saw and heard at that time, I learned that the leader of the 4 Saints' Palace was called Venerable Azure Tiger, a late-stage perfected golden immortal. He should have the bloodline of the ancient divine beast Azure Dragon. He wore an azure Qilin armor and fought against 4 mid-stage perfected golden immortals with ease, forcing them to constantly suffer injuries. Tan Xiu's complexion changed. He knew more about the situation in the distant past and knew that the Rosefinch Holy Sect was originally a branch of a super sect with several other branches, and the Azure Dragon lineage was one of them. The Azure Dragon, White Tiger, Vermilion Bird, Black Tortoise, and the Qilin clan were the guardian beasts of the original super sect. Tan Xiu and Sable Fiend Scorpio continued to move forward while conversing via voice transmission. Sable Fiend Scorpio's sneak attack on the Golden Immortal just now attracted the attention of more than a dozen people in front. Therefore, when the two arrived at their area, they all looked vigilant and no longer explored forward. Instead, they stared at the two as though they were facing a great enemy, guarding against any sneak attack. Within tens of thousands of kilometers outside the palace, dozens of perfected golden immortals looked at the footsteps of Tan Xiao and Sable Fiend Scorpio in shock. They found that ever since the two stepped on the bridge, it was as though they were walking on flat ground and didn't encounter any hindrance at all. It was as though the restrictions and traps on the bridge were useless to them. It's strange. Why didn't they encounter any hindrance? Do they know where the restrictions and traps on the periphery of this palace are? I don't get it. I really don't get it. Who the hell are those two? How can they ignore the restrictions and traps outside the palace? Huh? They actually walked in front of everyone and came out unscathed. They're very fast. Compared to the others, they're much faster. What's going on? Are they very familiar with this palace? Strange. Amidst their conversation, Tan Xiao and Sable Fiend Scorpio crossed the long bridge and came to the square in front of the palace. Suddenly, a total of 16 golem beasts around the square left their original positions and rushed toward Tan Xiao and Sable Fiend Scorpio. Big Dipper transposition. Tan Xiao strode forward and reached out to grab Sable Fiend Scorpio. The position he stepped on kept changing. Soon, the 16 golem beasts seemed to have lost their target and circled around the square a few times before returning to their original positions. Open. Tan Xiao struck a seal and the 100-meter-tall purple gold gate slowly opened. Along with the golden light lingering inside, Tan Xiao took Sable Fiend Scorpio and directly entered the gate. Then, the gate slowly closed again. They went in. The dozens of golden immortals and perfected golden immortals on the long bridge, as well as the dozens of perfected golden immortals nearby, all looked incredulous. Some of them had been wandering around here for several days and even climbed the long bridge to study the restrictions and traps inside, yet they couldn't enter the palace's door. Yet, those two people went in easily as if they were walking into their own backyard. Wasn't this too inconceivable? Inside the palace. The bejeweled jade palace was picturesque and beautiful. Tan Xiao, however, didn't have the time to appreciate the beautiful scenery here. He cast a seal and quickly collected the immortal treasures hanging everywhere inside. Even some precious ores and jewels inlaid on the palace walls were collected into his interspatial ring. He scraped the ground 3 feet high, leaving not even a blade of grass behind. This sentence could completely describe Tan Xiao's behavior. He simply didn't want to leave any treasures behind. He crazily took them and stuffed them into his interspatial ring. In just half an hour, Sable Fiend Scorpio was shocked to find that the total value of the treasures Tan Xiao collected exceeded 100 million crystal essences. 100 million crystal essences. This amount would absolutely cause the eyes of countless perfected golden immortal realm experts to go red with envy. That's too unsightly. Sable Fiend Scorpio watched as Tan Xiao dug out the golden sand stones on the wall and stuffed them into his interspatial ring. Her mouth couldn't help but twitch a few times and she hesitantly said, "Master, why don't you let me help you? Otherwise, you'll have to collect them for a long time given the size of this palace and the number of immortal treasures. You don't understand the situation here." Tan Xiao shook his head and said, "You'll be attacked by the restrictions if you rashly search for immortal treasures. Just stand aside and wait." Sable Fiend Scorpio slightly furrowed her brows. She didn't think that Tan Xiao was lying. After all, Tan Xiao could easily bring her here, indicating that he was very familiar with this place. Just now, she tried to shoot a celestial stone at the fire-taming pearl on one of the pillars. In the end, the celestial stone didn't even hit the pillar. It was shattered by a restriction that was hard to see with the naked eye. Could it be that this master of mine is the successor of Drunken Immortal Supreme? Could it be that he got the inheritance of Drunken Immortal Supreme a few days ago and can clearly understand the situation in this secret palace? Sable Fiend Scorpio's eyes flickered with a pondering look. She looked at Tan Xiao's back with a strange expression. In the courtyards. In the halls. Tan Xiao's speed was getting faster and faster. A large number of immortal treasures and cultivation resources were continuously collected into his interspatial ring. After 6 days, Tan Xiu appeared in the deepest part of the palace and collected all the treasures in the entire palace. Sable Fiend Scorpio looked at the empty palace with only the framework left. She couldn't help but wryly smile inwardly. Even if those grand thieves from the Sacred Thief sect came here, they would probably only be able to loot this place, no? With a satisfied expression, Tan Xiu looked at Sable Fiend Scorpio and smilingly said, "That's enough. These resources are enough for our great Tang Empire to consume for 100 years. Let's leave this place and go to other places to collect immortal treasures and resources. We've entered a treasure mountain, so we must return with a fruitful harvest." Sable Fiend Scorpio hesitated and asked, "Master, you seem to be familiar with this place. I told you that this secret palace is like strolling in my own back garden." Tan Xiu lightly smiled. "It's a pity that I don't care about the inheritance of Drunken Immortal Supreme. Otherwise, this entire secret palace would be mine and all the resources would be mine." Sable Fiend Scorpio's mouth twitched a few times again, but her heart turned fiery. If what her master said was true, then it would be a big profit for her. Shortly after, Tan Xiu left with Sable Fiend Scorpio. The moment the duo stepped out of the palace gate, more than a dozen pairs of eyes on the long bridge suddenly focused on them. Tan Xiu's expression remained unchanged and he said in a clear voice, "It's empty inside, with no treasures at all. Besides, the restrictions and traps inside are much more powerful than the ones outside. Let me give you a piece of advice. This place is a death trap, so you'd better leave." "Did you get a lot of treasures inside, kid?" A white-haired old man with a dragon head crutch looked at Tan Xiu meaningfully and asked. "If you really think there are treasures inside, then go ahead and crack the restrictions and traps here," said Tan Xiu lightly. "I just hope you won't regret wasting a lot of time here after entering."